James called in sick, and Randall let me know that he's trying, but he's stuck in the city. It doesn't bode well. I've not heard from David. But since it's edging up to 7 o'clock, well, no, in fact, it is 7 o'clock. Let's jump into our workshop session. We're going to spend the next half an hour until our regular meeting starts at 7:30 in workshop, wherein we will be discussing, I understand, Natalie, data gathered over the past few years as a result of and around our new parking regulations.
Yeah.
Yep. And we thought we'd also talk a little bit about some additional ideas for workshop subject matter, and then I think, Jennifer, you wanted to share with us the local, was it you, the local law?
Yeah, the local law referral, I can
Right.
go over it. That shouldn't take more than a minute or two. It's really
Okay.
pretty straightforward.
Do you want to do that first, and then we can roll into
Yeah,
Natalie's stuff? Thank you.
works. So the city council referred to the planning board a local law that it is considering. It has scheduled a public hearing on the local law for next Tuesday. So if possible, the city council has requested if we can get comments back to them tonight for their consideration at the public hearing, that would be great. If you need more time, that's fine too, but if it's possible to get comments back, they'd appreciate it.
These are the land use matters? No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep,
Yep.
the referrals of certain land use matters. So what the local law does is it amends the subdivision chapter of the city code and the zoning chapter of the city code with respect to the timing of referrals made under the New York State General Municipal Law to Dutchess County Planning, and also the referrals that the city council makes to you guys for report and recommendation. So currently the code says that the referrals have to happen at least 30 days prior to the public hearing. That's not a legal requirement as far as the state is concerned. The requirement for county referrals, at least, is that they need to be provided at least 30 days to do their review. And once the referral occurs, you can't take final action on the matter until either those 30 days has lapsed or you hear back from them with comments or a response. So what this does is this amends the code to be more in line with that, to allow a public hearing to open while that 30 days is pending. But neither you nor the city council, whoever's doing the referral, would not be able to take final action on the matter until, again, those 30 days have lapsed or you hear back from the county. With respect to referrals from the city council to the planning board, again, right now, the code requires those referrals to happen before the public hearing is opened by the city council. What is being proposed is that the referral has to happen before the public hearing is closed, and the planning board has 60 days to respond unless the council shortens the time for whatever reason. But
Before which public hearing? A council review?
Council public hearing. Yeah,
okay.
so this is
on like concept plan, that kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly.
okay.
On local laws, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Right. So it gives you, it gives the council a little more flexibility for when they refer something to you. They have the flexibility now to open a public hearing while you're still considering the referral, instead of having to make that referral prior to.
How about a new local law
hearing.
that says the city must give planning board at least 2 months to consider referrals back to them?
Well, that's 60 days is what they're,
Like,
so 60 days would be effectively 2 months.
yeah.
So
So our
I think
response,
that's-
right, okay.
Yeah, so I think, honestly, I think that was done in response to comments that we've, feedback that we've given to the city council, that sometimes the referrals are a little short.
Short.
And
Good.
You know,
Yeah,
there's a lot of consideration that goes into some of these referrals.
Yeah.
And sometimes the expectation was a little bit unrealistic in terms of how quickly we can get those comments back to the city council. So I think this is an effort to respond to that.
Yeah, I think this is all quite civilized and reasonable. I'm curious, how often do we or have we referred items to the county planning board?
You have a couple on your agenda tonight that have gone to the county. So New York State law under the general municipal law requires referrals to the certain types of applications to be referred to the county when they're within 500 feet of things like a county road, a county building, state parks. There's a whole list of triggering things.
State roads.
State roads, yes, thank you.
So like Wolcott 9D falls into that, right?
Yeah, so I think 193, 195 was referred because of its proximity to the county building.
That's right, yeah.
1064 Walcott was referred. So there's a couple on your agenda tonight that were the subject of referrals
Yeah.
and you've received. Usually the responses are either,
Meh.
it's a matter of local concern, make
Yeah.
your own decision, or they respond and say, make your own decision, but here's a couple comments for you to consider. We had that with 291 Main Street too. That
That's
was a
right.
referral. They had some comments on the lighting. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think just generally, at least to me, this all makes sense, and I don't have any specific comment back to the city. Anyone else on the board?
Oh, I just had a question. Are those responses from the county, are they generated from the planners, the administrative personnel, or?
County Planning
Okay.
Department, yes, yeah, yeah.
I just have and I'm not sure this is a real concrete concern, but I'm trying to imagine if the public hearing is opened on a matter and then something's referred to us and we're given 60 days to respond, logistically, does that kind of like elongate the process of when the public is having the opportunity to speak, what information they have available to them to consider? You know, maybe they, maybe there's a case to be made that simultaneity of those things, you know, if a question is referred to us and we're able to give an answer on it while the public hearing is still open, people can decide whether they support it, whether they want to bolster their own comments with it or not, depending on how closely they're following. I'm just curious whether anybody has any concerns about the process becoming kind of elongated in a situation where the hearing comes and maybe it's opened and closed and then 60 days later we give an answer on something.
No, I mean, this is more in reference to the hearings of the city council, so it's kind of within their window of time frame, right? So, and again, instead of being restricted to prior to the opening of it, extends their ability to, and our ability to opine and respond further into, and at least before the hearing is closed, right?
Yeah, so what it says is that the city council, so, and this is specific to, in this particular provision, a local law referral. So every time there's a proposed amendment to the zoning chapter, the amendment has to be referred to the planning board for a report before the public hearing on the proposed amendment has closed. So the referral has to happen before the public hearing has closed, and that
Right.
public hearing is the one at the city council level. Then what they're proposing to add into the code is that if a report is not received from the planning board within 60 days of that referral, or a shorter time period as may be set by the city council, then the city council may elect to close the public hearing and take action on the proposed change. So if you don't respond within the 60 days, then
Okay.
they can move forward and close the public hearing and take action. But I think the intent here is that they would keep the public hearing open
Thanks.
until such time as that
Okay.
60 days lapses, or they get your comments back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
Just what would be the expected impact on the, like, elapsed time for an application? Does this reduce the amount of time that an applicant would be able to go through all these steps, right?
I think it's intended to try to streamline, yeah, because Otherwise, as it's written now, and this is specific to a local law referral, but as it's written now, that referral has to happen before they can even open the public hearing.
Right.
So this allows it to kind of happen a little more in lockstep simultaneously.
Right, but
Yeah,
there's still the same opportunities for public comment, another thing, are the timeframes for that don't get diminished,
No,
right?
no,
So it
yeah.
just happens simultaneously in parallel rather than sequentially.
Exactly,
That's,
yeah.
that's the impact of it, so
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds,
No, it doesn't diminish the amount of public comment
Mm-hmm.
available, yeah.
We don't want to do that. Okay, thank you. I think our response back is generally acceptable as written. Natalie?
Great.
Thank you, Jennifer.
So the other topic for our training today is the annual reporting requirement for the new, recently, I guess, somewhat new parking regulations. So you got 2 documents. I'm just going to kind of go through those quickly because this is the first time the planning board is going through this exercise. So in August of 2024, the council adopted a local law amending the city code to eliminate parking minimums in certain commercial districts and then reduce parking minimums in the outer districts, and then they added parking maximums. So you guys are all familiar with that. Those local laws came before the planning board for review. But what Jennifer had pointed out, that in the adopting resolution, one of the things the council wanted to do was kind of check in with the planning board and check in on planning board applications for the first 3 years to see how that local law was actually being implemented and playing out in projects in Beacon. So the documents that you have before you, I looked at everything from August of 2024, when the code was updated, until December 2025, so kind of ending it at the end of the year. So we'll kind of do a report at the end of 2025, end of 2026, and end of 2027. I went back through, in terms of methodology, I went back through all the agendas, pulled every item and description off of the agendas. The only thing that I excluded, there was 2 or 3 applications that were withdrawn. They maybe came before the planning board once and then did not continue for whatever reason. So we can talk about whether we want to kind of add them on there. I left them off for now because the 2 that got pulled were 17 South Cedar, which was a new garage with an ADU added on top of it, and then 2 Cross, which was just facade stuff that got pulled. On second thought, I was thinking maybe we should actually track withdrawals as well, because that might play into the story at some point, but for now, that's what I kept off. And then so from there, I'm going to just jump over from the memo to the actual document, so this is the tracking sheet that you have in front of you. And what I broke it up into is the first section is approved projects. So within that time frame we talked about, projects that were approved by the planning board. I have ones that are still, as of December 2025, we're still under kind of review. And then I did list some that were not applicable. So these weren't withdrawn, but we didn't discuss parking for these because of the nature of the application. And then what you have for each section is kind of a zoning district, project description, the regulations under the new local law. I've been trying to piece together what the previous parking requirements would have been under the old code, and then what was provided. And then I just have some kind of notes here. So what was requested, just jumping back to the memo real quick, what was requested from the planning board was specific. Actually, I need to add this to there. I think I put that in my email, but not necessarily in here. But they kind of wanted to know where are these projects occurring and what zoning districts. They wanted the comparison of current to previous parking regulations, and then any other information the planning board feels is necessary. So I wanted to start by providing you with this. This is kind of the bare minimum of what they requested, and then we can discuss tonight if the planning board thinks there's other key things from the discussion or from the approvals that we maybe want to add to this summary before sending to the planning board. So the one thing or to the council, I'm sorry. The one thing I will say in terms of going through the previous parking regulations and the parking provided, we are still seeing applications provide pretty close to what would have previously been required, right? They now have a min and max kind of setting. the majority of the 10 projects that were approved in this time frame, I think the majority of them, if you're comparing column E to F, came pretty close, right, to what was previously provided or what would have been previously required. There's 2 exceptions, which was 45 Beekman, which had a reduction from 109 would have been required. They provided 88. And 300 Main Street, which I still need to work with you to figure out what would have been required. The one thing I'm not experienced with in City of Beacon is the 1964 exemption and how that was applied to certain projects. So, just bare minimum based off of the parking regulations, that project would have required 43 spaces, but I wasn't quite sure how the 1964 exemption played in, and they provided 0 on that space. So right now, there's no interpretation to this. This is kind of just the data.
Yeah, I was going to ask what, just even at this high level, you see as sort of key takeaways. Like, ultimately, what is it that we want to, kind of pull from this comparison and the reporting relative to the, I guess, obviously the change in regulations? I don't know. I was sort of anticipating kind of exactly what happened here relative to those sometimes challenging applications where there had been a minimum required, and then those aren't then available, right? So the whole discussion of waiving the requirement, et cetera, those were always very challenging. Usually they fell on Main Street. But yeah, ultimately, what is the kind of the goal and the ultimate learning we want to take from it?
Yeah, and I mean, I think
comparison.
from being in on the council, it's interesting. I want to hear the planning board's thoughts on that, on what your guys' goals are. I think for the council, I think there's just been conversations. I think they were reacting to comments from the planning board of unforeseen consequences,
Yeah.
or so I think that's why they put this kind of stipulation in the resolution, not knowing exactly what is the finding going to be, but let's at least do something so that we're tracking and looking back
Fair.
to, and I think so we're here to kind of decide what is,
Well, I'll say this, it's just exactly that, at least from experience. It's not necessarily what the data is showing, although it's kind of a result of this, is that it somewhat streamlines the requirements around, sometimes difficult discussions relative to what used to be required minimums, right?
Can I add a comment?
Yeah, please.
So I found it helpful that you included what some of the projects were relying on in terms of the public parking spaces for the off-street.
Yeah.
And I think if we can maybe expand that a little bit so that we can understand the various lots, how many spaces overall are in those various lots, and then how many have been, kind of earmarked or spoken
Yep.
for
Yeah.
by the various projects.
Yeah, I thought, so why I exactly did that is because John Clark, the previous planner, had done this
Never heard
kind of utilization analysis in 2022, right? Which is a little bit of a laborious kind of action to be going out there and doing that. And I was exactly thinking about that we have them kind of identify what are the lots within 500 feet.
Right.
Not, just because we're maybe waiving 10 spaces for that lot, that doesn't necessarily mean 10 cars are going to appear there, but it's worth tracking that and then kind of going back and be able to look at this data in a few years and see, have we seen that lot kind of become more occupied,
Right.
or
And-
utilization
those-
increase?
Or those scenarios where, and maybe you're talking about the same thing, where there's been a requirement, the site can't meet it, but they've chosen to, and we've agreed to allow them to use municipal.
Or on-street, or, yeah.
What the cumulative effect to that looks like. Because, are we, at a certain point, are we double dipping? Are we running out of space to allow for sharing?
Yeah.
Right, I mean, as the city grows, there's going to be more demand for the public parking spaces, and, so it,
Yeah.
what are the, what are the avenues of addressing those over demand issues?
And at the least, right now, we can just try and track the applications all in one. Because this did take a little bit of, I think it is a helpful exercise in the very least, because it did take time for me to kind of go back through each application, each resolution, and try to figure out, like, who said what was going where, so at least it's all going to be in one place.
Did you reminisce fondly? Well,
All I was going to say was I think it's a good, I think doing this is a good idea. It's a good approach. Over the past year or year and a half, we've had, I was going to say historically high interest rates, but that's not at all true. In the context of a 30-year window, it is.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of wondering to what extent that is going to impact the period we're looking at right now, basically because we're not seeing as many big projects.
Oh, you're saying interest rates cost of money,
Yeah, cost-
its
cost.
impact on,
Yeah.
activity, construction activity.
Just a thought.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
you do that study too.
Okay. I was going to do a little bit more of to the memo that I had drafted, at least a summary of, like, we saw this many projects,
Yeah.
this many units, this many, just to try and summarize a little bit so we can kind of get that snapshot for each year of what the planning board was reviewing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, I think it's important what you're doing as far as like tallying the cumulative impacts over time, because we only get an opportunity to look at individual instances, right? And the importance of this is seeing what happens over decades, right, to our public parking, and whether or not we still have the capacity to, at different use times and the way that parking gets used during the day, to accommodate the kind of long-term residential parking that's allocated, that's been earmarked for the different projects to allow them to go ahead. There's another aspect. So that's, I think, getting a number there, because it also allows us to plan ahead if we need to start thinking about providing more, like a few small other parking lots to minimize the impact and the disruption and the easy use that we have for parking. That's important. I don't want us to be in a situation like Cold Spring, where it's really difficult to actually. The other problem that we saw recently is the fact that when it snows, people don't have the opportunity to, they can't park on the street, they can't move. It's really difficult for these people that have vehicles, that the only place they have is these public lots to clear them out. So that's a real inconvenience. We just need to be able to understand the magnitude of that problem and figure out how to. There's another thing which I think we should look at, which is on projects like Cross Street. Some of these developments are much larger, or they couldn't happen at all without the minimum parking, right? So there's a development capacity that's opened up because there's not a parking requirement, right? There's many lots. I don't know how many, because now all of a sudden there's sort of, they're coming up, like places that wouldn't have been thought to be developable are now being developed with what I think are a little bit of, novel sort of development strategies because there's no parking requirement, right? Mm-hmm. So that's, for good or bad, right? We should just know what that is and make a judgment about whether or not that's something we want to.
So like 300 Main Street?
It's not that there's no parking requirement, even though that's how I've characterized it in the past. It's just the lack of a hard and fast parking requirement.
Well, it's a judgment call. I mean, people are allowed to not have any parking in some situations. They're allowed to apply and never put in an application that provides it.
In 1994, Montana changed their highway speed limit to reasonable and prudent, and it only lasted about 2 years because every ticket was a court contest. So just went back to having a number.
I'm just, these are the sort of things that this information is going to be useful for us going forward as we look at like things like residential zoning changes and other things.
Yeah.
To see what sort of, because I think we've spent a lot of the capacity, we had excess parking capacity when the development started, and I think at some point here we have to see whether or not that's still the case.
I'm sorry if I missed this before, but how are we updating the assessment of what the base kind of usage or demand is on the public lots? You referred to it.
That's not part of this exercise. Yeah. I was only just saying that that's why I started adding the tracking of if there was some discussion of off-site parking being within the vicinity, right? I was trying to pull that information out of the traffic impact analyses that we get from each project so that I could, so that's in the comment, in the notes column, where I was just trying to note that, if someone identified a lot.
Because I feel like it's definitely, the usage is getting heavier, and my anecdotal observations from walking at 7 AM is that there's a overnight load in municipal lots that's pretty high. You know, it's just resident parking. And so, you know, over the past year, it's at the point now where, like, if you want to pick up takeout from Momo, you better have somebody else in the car with you so you can double park, because there's no space going to be anywhere where you're going to park in the VFW lot if you're
We're
lucky.
better off walking.
Yeah, so it's definitely,
God forbid. God forbid we get out of our cars and we
not
walk.
in the snow, man. In the snow and ice, my feet will be
Yeah.
cold by the time I get home.
Some
But
people
yeah.
can't walk, you know. Some
But I think
people
I
are
think that's
disabled.
part of the puzzle. I think it's
Yeah.
a good analysis. What you're saying is to say, hey, has this really changed? Does it seem to have really changed the number of spaces that would have been approved for these projects? Maybe
Yeah.
not so much, but that other part of how much cushion do we have
Yeah.
left?
Yeah, and I think just overall, I don't know
Have
if,
an answer to that.
Well, I guess unless we recommend or request another study. to
well,
look
it'll
at,
happen
you know,
every year.
Well, I think it's important to
I
note
mean,
too,
not this study, a study of.
Oh,
what
I
the
see.
com-
What the overall, what demand is and where it's going, like, in
Yeah.
the future, because it's kind of the other thing I'd say is, like, it's, to some extent, this is throwing darts at a blank wall.
Yep.
I just wanted to note, many times applicants will provide parking studies, right, with their request to
Yeah.
have a certain amount of parking spaces be approved. And they go out and they count at various times of the day how many spaces are available on street within 500 feet of the site, how many spaces are available within municipal lots. So in a sense, we're getting a little snapshot of that going forward with each
Yeah.
Right,
application.
but it's incidental, right? It's not incremental. It's at a snapshot in time, and it doesn't take into account, capacity that's been taken up previously, or that's going to happen in the future.
Well, it should
previously it
reflect
does, but I
some
think-
cumulative
Right.
effect.
If you have 8
There.
projects before you that have none of them have been built, and each
Approved but
one,
not built, yeah.
each one comes and says, hey, we did a study, we looked at the number of spaces available, they're all counting the same spaces.
Yeah.
So then when those guys
Right.
get approved, bang, it's a cumulative effect that's bigger than perhaps what has been documented in their study
Yeah.
using the.
I like the idea of compiling the utilization data, because
Yeah.
when we first went through this exercise with the council, we were working with the city's traffic consultant, and they gave us pricing for what it would what it would cost to go out and do that traffic utilization every single year. And it was, the first one was like 25,000, and then after that it was 12 to 17,000 to update every year. So not necessarily money, but to Jen's point, private developers are having their traffic consultants go out and kind of do this. So there might be a way to kind of, again, they're always going to be
Pull from
snapshots.
that,
That's what a
yeah.
utilization analysis is. And I get your point that it's not, there's a delay, right, between some projects that are approved immediately together. But that could be something that could be added to this
Yeah.
reporting, is trying
Mm-hmm.
to pull those traffic study utilization.
I think what it
for
would be
various lots.
important to, because, yeah, I mean, the real-world observation should start to show some cumulative effect that can be validated through what you're describing is somewhat of an audit, right, of those applications and what those spot analysis, if you want to call them that,
Yeah,
are telling us.
yeah.
Yeah, we have only
So
a
with
couple
the-
minutes left. Yeah, did you want to summarize?
I have notes. I mean, I guess this, I didn't want to, I wanted to go on to our training for 2026. Do you
Yeah.
want to look at that, or
Yeah.
do you want to summarize?
Well, I would say,
Feedback.
just in general, I'd kind of opined, at least in my experience, on, the impact of the process for us of the law change.
Yeah.
I'd just rather, not just rely on me, but I'd rather hear also from the board, just in terms of like, what do you all think in terms of, because it's probably important feedback for the
Yeah.
council as well. Do we see it as a positive change just relative to how we assess parking as a planning board?
I feel like I'd like to have a chance to actually look at this data.
No, I'm not talking about that part. I'm talking about since the law changed and how we review applications between when the law was old and now this new law, I generally think it's an improvement. It helps our process. It gives us a lot more leeway. It also provides for these sort of, unique one-off analyses, right? Because it sort of then becomes incumbent upon the applicant to make proof for us of a number, right?
Yeah.
So that's just my
yes.
observation, is that it's been a useful tool.
But one of the applicant's jobs, one of the consultants for the applicant's jobs is to get the application approved. They're going to put a good spin on it. They're going to find a way to make that work,
Well, we're also going to have our
Yeah.
crack consultants double-check their work, right?
Getting away from the
Yeah,
1964 exemption was a good thing. It's definitely more streamlined now.
Yeah.
It's a better process, I
So,
think.
yeah, that's basically all I was kind of.
Yeah. So I do have that. I have streamlines difficult discussions around kind of waivers, and it kind of allows a little bit more flexibility. Recommendation to track reliance on municipal lots. In general, this is a good exercise to kind of be keeping cumulative track of impacts. We'll add a summary of the number of projects, number of units. Snow storage is important. And then I think I like the comment of, does it change the spaces that would have been required by the planning board? Maybe not, but the question we're trying to get at is, does it impact utilization of municipal lots and on-street parking? Probably, so how can we use this data to then help that? And then from there, pulling utilization data from the traffic impact studies that we're getting from private developers so that we can kind of start to compile that, is what I have in my notes.
Well summarized.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
So, yeah, let's take 2 minutes.
2 minutes. So
to
then,
talk
yes,
about-
the other thing
yeah.
I just wanted to put up here is, we just wanted to, for 2026, I have been kind of tracking what the trainings have been for the past few years. I didn't send this document around, I apologize, but I can send it out. So I was thinking for this year that we could kind of break it up into a few different sections. So kind of first 3 would be procedurals, so it kind of resets the board in terms of, we did rules and procedures. Maybe this is a little bit more kind of a referral, right, in terms of parking. We'll do the practical. I want to kind of take seeker again, and we could talk about it, take the traditional one that I think Jen has gone through in past years, and maybe try to take some more of like application of that stuff and talk about that, and do
Real-world
some
examples.
trick examples for you guys to kind of work
Ooh,
through.
will there be a pop quiz?
And then from there, yes, there will be a pop quiz, kind of going into site plan review aspects, so things that you guys are often charged to look at on site plans. So we did one 2 years ago on lighting and lighting regulations and what it means to talk about foot
Yep.
candles and temperature, so we could do a refresh on that. I think we had a request from the planning board to talk about parking lot design, and aspects that go into parking lot design and circulation, so I can do a
Did you make John do that?
Yeah, no, I put John on the next one. So HVAC options and utilities, so something that the
No.
planning board is charged with looking at.
Boring, yeah, take it off.
Nope, it's on there. You let me create the list, so that's what
I don't
happened.
know which is more scintillating, HVAC
And then-
or SECRA.
And then I was gonna try and pull some current policy issues from kind of APA and stuff like that, so I can kind of, as we get towards the end of the year, I can pull some topics, kind of send that to the board, we can vote, and then do a little
Yeah.
bit more of like, what is the world of planning talking about right now? And then I left some space for referrals that we know we'll get from the council as well.
Yeah, that's great. And we can sort of shift based on when
Yeah,
those
they'll
referrals come
bounce
in.
around
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So I'll send this around, and then you can kind of see what we've discussed the past few years and how we've gone
Oh,
through
that's-
that.
Wow, look at the work you've done.
Yeah.
You've got
Yeah.
tabs.
You-
Yeah, I think just the only thing I'd say is that amongst the board, if there's any burning, pressing need to move any of these more forward, just let,
You mentioned before,
No.
you mentioned before that you'd done some research on transit-oriented development projects, and there's an expectation that something is going to be before us, anything that would help us understand those kind of developments, which have been happening all around the country.
good call.
We can add that to, yeah.
The other thing that.
What do you want to know about TUD? You just want an overview of TUD?
I did a lot of research on it when the previous developments were being looked at. But I'm always concerned about the synergistic potential, right? Where transit and other things with mixed-use developments in particular reduce traffic reduce parking demand, reduce other things that are expensive and have an impact on the development.
Yeah, no, that's a really good call, Kevin. Especially as relates to TOD and, you know, relevant, I think, obviously, to what is coming down the pike for the train station area is, you know, what is the relationship of the government, it's a, you know, government, private, public kind of venture, right? So what is the relationship between the public part of that, the MTA, you know, who's the applicant, you know, who has purview, those sorts of things I think would be super important, especially if we talk about laying the sort of the groundwork for our review.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. I like that.
One other topic that I would be interested in spending some time on is the city, you know, has certain efforts going on to be like climate smart and resilient, and how, as a planning board, we can, you know, perhaps align ourselves or see what impacts, you know, code requirements or,
Yeah.
you know, drainage or stormwater.
John's all over
Efforts.
that one.
Yeah, I love that.
No, it goes downhill.
Cool.
Yeah, I think the good place to start there would
Yeah.
just be to kind of understand a primer for what codes are in place for, you know, conformance to, you know, either the baseline codes or anything that Beacon's put in place to, you
Yeah.
know, require applicants to perform better than code, stuff like that. Anyway, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's good to have a plan.
yeah, good. Like a plan.
Anyway, welcome everybody to the February 2026 meeting of the City of Beacon Planning Board. We will start with first order of business being approval of January's minutes. Are we up to date? Any adds, changes we have to note?
Yes, I received some edits, and they were already added.
Okay, wonderful. So as amended, a motion please to approve January 13, 2026 minutes.
Motion.
Motion by Karen,
Second?
second by Kevin, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. So we'll go to our first agenda item, which is to continue our public hearing and review of applications for site plan approval and special use permit, hotel and restaurant, 1064 Walcott Avenue. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Taylor Palmer with the law firm of Cuddy & Fader on behalf of the applicant. Tonight I am joined by our project architect, R.A. Siegel, as well as our engineer, Mike Bodendorf of Hudson Land Design, Rich DeAndre of Collier's Engineering on Traffic, and we also have Beth Selig of Hudson Cultural, who's our historic and cultural preservation specialist. We are also joined by the applicant. As you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, we are before you for our continued public hearing this evening on our applications for site plan and special use permit approval to adaptively reuse the two existing buildings on the property and to install connecting, in addition, connecting the existing southern building for use as a proposed hotel and 48 guest rooms on the property. That will also include an accessory restaurant. As you know, and as you mentioned, the public hearing was opened on this back in December, and we did provide a detailed background regarding the project at that time. For the benefit of the public coming tonight, to briefly summarize, the applicant proposes to adaptively reuse the property for a hotel to be known as the Inn at Spy Hill. The hotel will include 48 guest rooms, along with associated guest amenity spaces, including a lobby and a reception area, as well as a gym and a spa for use by the hotel guests. It will also include the accessory restaurant, which will be open to the public. We have included significant areas of ornamental and functional landscaping, together with parking that will be provided for hotel and restaurant guests. And then we're using a combination of on-site and off-site spaces with a valet system for that parking when we meet peak periods. Before I turn it over to RA, Mike, Rich, and Beth, I will provide a brief summary of what we did include in our supplemental submission dated January 28th. So following our discussions with you at the January 13th meeting, we did continue to develop the engineering, traffic, parking, and landscaping designs and support the programmatic elements of our project and the overall project design. The landscaping program was designed by Deborah Adamsons of Landscape Restorations, and it was refined to include a tree removal plan, as well as supplemental screening for the outdoor parking areas and a revised planting schedule and planting list. Notably, I think there was some confusion, maybe on our part. We are not proposing to remove any trees from anyone else's property. It's only those on our site. So it's only within the applicant's property boundaries. So there may have been an error on Deborah's plan noting that, but we'll, incorrectly designating to remove, but nothing will be removed from anywhere but our property. We also included our rain garden in the front of the porte cochere, which we replaced with a stormwater planter. Further location of certain condenser units has been clarified, and privacy screening and supplemental landscaping, including a wood trellis, will provide overhead visual screening. So that's been included in these revised plans. Information has been incorporated into our plans that also address the scope of the existing proposed changes to the existing northern building. I know Natalie had some comments on that, so I'll have Beth and Aria speak to what those changes are. And as requested by the board and your consultants, we did update our stormwater management plan, as well as our engineering, construction, and drawings. I do want to also provide some additional feedback, because we did speak briefly about our off-street parking agreement at the January 13th meeting. So just by way of reflection, the applicant is proposing 39 parking spaces at the property. The number is compliant with the city's code, which requires 28 spaces minimum, and then a 78 space maximum for the site. Rich will speak to this a little further in just a moment, but we anticipate some additional parking spaces may be needed during a peak parking demand, which is timely to your discussion this evening. So we did propose use of a valet for both on-site parking and off-street parking at that additional location, which is the funeral home. The valet parking will allow up to 49 vehicles parked at the site, and we've also reached an agreement with the funeral home in principle for up to 14 additional cars to be parked at that property. The parking license has been drafted. Mr. Supple is away for this week, so we're trying to get that more finalized in the coming days. With those 14 spaces, we anticipate that we can meet any peak parking demands. Again, this is not an event space, or otherwise it's a hotel with a spa, so certainly distinguishable from other applications previously considered. That being said, we understand there were limited instances, which we talked about at the last meeting, where demand for the parking at the project site may conflict or have similar demands as the funeral home on a PM period, where those 14 spaces may not be available for our use. So while we haven't reached out to the folks at DIA, who we know are on tonight's agenda for additional parking, and we will certainly be doing so, we are exploring where else that could happen in those very rare instances. Notwithstanding, Colliers had provided some other proposal, which would have included additional parking spaces on site, which they'll speak to. I know Mr. Russo and I believe the building inspector have reviewed that and looked at it as a potential issue for New York State Building and Fire Code. So while we understand there's that concern, the applicant is also investigating a potential shuttle option, which would allow us to valet cars to the municipal lot or to the fire station lot. So those are another relief valve for the very rare instances where there will be a conflict with the funeral home having events at that space. So Rich will touch on that just momentarily. Last 2 points here. During the seeker review, we do have Beth Selig with us. She did submit our materials to the SHPO, again, as a HDLO property. The matter was referred over to the SHPO, and it was accepted into the CRIS system on January 9th. She'll note that we did receive variously a response from the SHPO that had a few minor comments regarding the architectural detailing, similar to the comments Natalie brought up in her memorandum about the new construction, and also recommending construction protection plan. So we just provided that to Ms. Gray late this afternoon, early evening, and I'll let Beth touch on those. So we will be, as you all know, also seeking an area variance for the rear yard setback because of the irregular shape of this lot. The buildings that exist today are already within the setback for this district, but we are seeking that. We submitted that, and we'll be there next week with those folks. Finally, we have been in the process of retaining a lighting consultant. Mr. Vermillion had requested a certain extensive lighting design. While very expensive, the applicant is still pursuing how we can adjust our lighting plan to reflect some additional details that would be more site plan specific, but the formal lighting plan that we did submit did address luminaires and address the code compliance. And it was prepared by a lighting representative, but again, we're still trying to work in a lighting designer to do more of the, I think, I'll call it T-crossing, I-dotting, but to get into the lumens, to get into the colors, to get into the fixtures and how they relate to the landscaping. So we're trying to do that thoughtfully, but more in a site plan capacity with a few different lighting options as we work through that. So while we are working on a lighting plan that will be enhanced and improved during the site plan review, we respectfully submit that the lighting plan that we did provide and what will be prepared on the site will not have a significant adverse environmental impact. So while we're treating that sort of as a site plan issue beyond what's been submitted. So with that, I will have REA visualize these changes, and then we'll talk. Yep.
So for when he's here next month, it's Vermeulen.
Say again, Mr. Chairman?
Vermeulen.
Vermeulen, thank you. Appreciate it. I'll just stick with Jim.
Good evening.
Hi.
So Taylor went over a number of the points that described the changes that we made. Deborah is working on some details of the trellis design that she described it as sort of like a Victorian style that would fit in with, you know, the architecture there. But those details will end up on the drawings.
So just real quick, I'm tracking here. So to still be updated, and we should anticipate seeing soon, next month, additional design related to the lighting, right?
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
get into
okay.
that in a
And
second.
then,
Yeah.
and then additional details around some of the screening. I think you're referring to the trellis? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, the idea, with the trellis, the parking lot is sort of above the mechanical equipment area.
Right.
And so we have screening, on the ground, but we also wanted to screen it from above, so we'll provide those details. And I think she did provide the planting type, the vines, but we're going to get you details of the actual, construction of the trellis itself. Yeah, and then in terms of the lighting, we reached out to a couple lighting designers. We're reviewing their proposals, and we're probably going to look at another one or two. The proposals are very pricey, so I may go into that business. So we did, provide updated landscape design and planting schedule. As Taylor mentioned, we'll take care of the outside the property line tree removals. But we did complete that tree survey, and we're showing what's going to be removed inside the site. The majority of them are Norway maples, which are an invasive species that, they drop limbs, they produce a lot of seeds every year, which makes it hard to, provide maintenance for the actual new landscaping that we're putting in. So there's several of those coming out, but Deborah Adamson's the landscape designer, wanted me to let you know why those are all coming out. So, last month, we also talked about how to treat the exterior of the building to differentiate the north building from the new work. We provided some information that was new about that, but I understand, we want to get into a little bit more detail on that.
Yep.
But what we, just generally, the items that do differentiate it that we've already submitted is, the existing siding on the North Historic Building is wood, and has a bit of a patina to it. It would be that new color that we're proposing, but that, already differentiates itself from new siding. The window details are a little bit different. There's subtle differences. The porch posts are different, but we understood that the board pretty much agreed that it should be the same color and not some radical difference. Another thing that we're going to do, and I'm waiting for some samples of this, is we're looking at the siding types. The existing building has lap siding, which has that patina on it. So what we're doing is looking at something that's like a mix of traditional and a little bit more modern, like a Dutch lap or a, more of a flat siding that has some kind of reveal to it, but isn't lap siding. And then, but the color would be the same throughout.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't want to speak for Natalie, but just on that note, yeah, it was more a desire to really understand either visually or through, a written description of what those deviations, what those changes are from what you see now to what you're intending.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you started down that list. It'd be really great to be able to kind of see that in an aggregated form.
Right.
Just so we can really understand, the sort of sum total of the changes.
Yeah, so what we're
Well,
going to...
it's two-pronged, so I think what REA is going through, the list he's going through is kind of what I commented on and what the county commented on
Yeah.
of a little bit of differentiation, right? So keep it within the same color palette, but do accents on the historic building so we know it's the historic building, or different patinas, different material choices. And I think the other question was, I really want this board to understand from the historic building what is changing. So we got some information on like the bay window on the second floor is now going to be obstructed from the addition, right?
Yep.
It looks like on the newer portion of the historic building, window types are changing. So that's the other piece that, and I can get into that with my comments more to explain that very clearly, because we've asked for it a few times.
Yeah, I did add some information, but I understand, you want to make it very specific to what, what we're proposing to add and how that's different.
Yeah, and if she's got to ask more than twice, you're in trouble.
Yeah. I'll keep it at 2. Yeah, so I'll go through that list and highlight it on the drawings, where we're doing it. And like I said, I have some samples coming in, so I'll be able
Excellent.
to bring those.
Good. Yeah, we'll look forward to those.
Yeah. So I think that's it from me for now.
Okay.
Good evening. For the record, Mike Bodendorf, engineer for the applicant. So since last month, we mainly just updated stormwater. We added some catch basins. We updated the underground detention, updated the design for the planter boxes. And just to give a little history on other engineering on the project for the public, each building is currently hooked up to water and sewer. We're going to maintain those connections. We're going to bring a new 6-inch water line into the property, provide a hydrant on the property, and that water line will also provide water to the new building. New building will connect to the existing sewer system that's located on the site.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great.
Good evening. So if you recall from last meeting, we talked about the 14 spaces that we're going to be renting from, or so, whatever, leasing from the funeral home. And we talked about how that may be problematic when they have large funeral events there. And understanding that, we looked at some alternate ways that we could potentially handle that. We did submit to you an alternate where we could theoretically accommodate all the parking that we need on our site, understanding that it would be an interim, very short duration situation. I know from Mr. Russo's comments that that probably doesn't fly with
Not ideal.
Not ideal. Doesn't work for the fire code, and we understand that.
Emergencies actually happen in those interim moments.
And we understand that completely. So as an alternate to that, our thought is we would valet cars to the firehouse lot or the municipal lot here for the short duration, 2 or 3 hours, whatever it might be. It would mean probably having a shuttle vehicle that would either transport the valet personnel back and forth, or maybe transport somebody from the restaurant or somebody going to get their vehicle to the lot to get their vehicle coming when they're leaving. But again, it would be a very short duration.
Are you referring to the municipal lot on Main?
No, here.
Here?
Here. The idea is we're looking for the closest possible lots
Sure.
that we could use.
Yeah, again, this is a good example of spots that have been discussed in previous applications that may or may not have otherwise been promised to those other applications for
Agreed.
parking sharing. So-
And I'm happy to share whatever information you want that we already have, so, to help you guys out with that. But that's the idea is, you know, it really, primarily this would be on a Friday or Saturday evening when the hotel and the restaurant are at their max usage. On a Tuesday evening or afternoon, you're really not going to see that happen.
That's the hope, right?
Right.
We want to get to a point where we've got good confidence that, you know, you've got a good solution where you're not going to get jammed up.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's our proposal at this point, is that we would valet and shuttle as we need to back and forth to this location. Again, it would be 2 or 3 hours at a time when they have those events. It's not every day.
So let me just hear you right. You're saying, please, board, don't consider those other, okay, I'm seeing nodded heads.
What we submitted?
Don't consider the funeral home or even.
No, the funeral home's still part of it.
Okay.
So like when the funeral home doesn't have anything going on, we would still utilize those spaces.
I see.
So it would be an open communication between the applicant and the funeral home to understand what the funeral home schedule is and what's happening on a daily basis kind of thing.
Right, okay, I get it. So you're still working to make sure you've got that agreement in place?
Yep.
Okay. Or it is in place? I'm getting a thumbs up.
It's
in process.
Oh, it's in, you're still working to get that agreement in place? Okay, but what you're describing to us is that you have hope for that to be your go-to solution.
That's the first line of defense, and the second line of defense
with backup,
is-
as you
yes.
described with the municipal lots. Understood. Thank you. Anything else?
That's it for me.
Great, okay. So,
One more thing.
oh, one more, okay. Hi.
For the record, Beth Seelig, Hudson Cultural Services. I'm going to update you on the SHPO submission that Taylor mentioned. We had submitted prior to the last meeting on January 13th, and the SHPO responded with a request for some information, primarily photographs. They issued a letter on February 5th, which did not make it into, I think, the most recent submission, so I don't know that you've seen it yet, although I think Jennifer might have seen a copy.
Excuse me, can you speak into the...
Sure, sorry. The SHPO recommended simplifying the new proposed construction. Specifically, they mentioned removing the finials and reducing the applied architectural detailing. In their opinion, new construction should not attempt to replicate historic buildings elsewhere on the site. They've also recommended a construction protection plan for historic resources within 90 feet of the proposed construction activities. And this is simply protective measures such as fencing, vibration monitoring, or other measures that are temporary that get put in place during construction to offset or prevent any inadvertent impacts. But their first comment on simplifying the proposed construction, I think, speaks to what was brought up at the last meeting by the planner for differentiation. The state and federal statute is for new buildings on or adjacent to historic properties to be compatible but differentiated. So that is still coming up, and I think, you know, in REA's defense, we're sort of waiting to see what the SHPO had to say and what they wanted to see before we move forward with making any plans, and also we'd be interested in what the board feels about it. Currently, as the plans exist, as they are in front of you, the new addition on the north building, or the historic structure, the second story addition, which is on top of the existing addition, has a peaked roof with gable dormers, which is very different from the flat roof, which is the original building. Window size and style throughout the older portion is different from the newer. And the window style and decorative trim is also much simpler. For instance, on the new buildings, the windows all have mullions, or to use a contractor's term, grills on the windows. There's the articulation pattern in the overall structure that's highlighted with the vertical board and batten style siding. The conical roof designs are a little different. The new building has very simplified balustrades and porch posts compared to the very decorative ones on the historic building. So those are some things that I just wanted to highlight that are already on the plans. I know REA spoke about other ways that they're looking at highlighting that differentiation, and would be interested to hear the board's thoughts on that. That's all I
Great.
have.
Thanks.
You.
Okay, so we'll hear from our consultants. We'll discuss or otherwise ask further questions of the applicant around the board. And then we are still in open public hearing, so we'll go to the public. And then we have a few procedural items, board, to consider. One being the draft neg deck that we have from Jen's office. We can discuss whether we're ready. And then we have the draft LWRP consistency statement from the applicant that we can discuss. So, but we'll go obviously in order. So we'll start with Natalie. Any other highlights from your review that you want to share with us?
So I think we've covered pretty clearly between all of us, like some kind of differentiation between the two, right? The historic structure and the new. I think the piece I want to just focus on was 1C in my letter. So just to be very clear, if you go to sheet 7 of 17, this is where you see the elevations of the proposed renovations to this existing structure. And I think what was really helpful about this application is, for the first time, we had photos of the current building in Exhibit D, which is what was submitted to SHPO from the outside. So that was the first time that we had complete around photos of the existing structure, and I was able to start comparing sheet 7 of 17 to those photos to say what's changing, right? And so that's where you start to see, and I think we did have some notated floor plans on sheet 6 of 17, but a lot of the interior stuff is not what we're looking at for the HCLO. We're looking at the exterior. So that's why I said this was the first time that I kind of got indication that there is a bay window on the second floor of the historic structure that is going to be removed so that the second floor addition can be added there. So that is exactly what I'm asking for on the elevations on sheet 7 of 17, is these elevations should be notated to kind of say where historic aspects are being removed, so that that is very clear to the board in their consideration. And if everything else is staying the same, fine, add that note. Everything else besides what is listed here is staying exactly the same. I just want the board to be very clear on what's changing and what is not with that historic.
Thank you. That's request number 3 for the record.
So that's just, I just wanted to, so that's what I was looking for. And I mean, the other notations, these are the contract, right? These elevations. So pointing out what are the materials being proposed. We have renderings that are kind of showing materials in color, but the elevations aren't notated to confirm that. So I think that's the kind of detail we're looking for there. Rear yard setback was already discussed in terms of that needing variance. I just leave that on there. I did note the tree removal. I think it was really helpful to kind of see existing trees, where they're coming down, and it sounds like there's going to be some cleanup of, sometimes the property lines are weird, so I wasn't quite sure if they were on the site and they're being removed or if they're off. So I think just clarifying what trees, and I think there was a number of trees proposed for removal. So I'm not sure if you already hit on this. There was a number of trees proposed for removal that look like they're falling in landscaped areas. So I think wherever possible, it's in the code that we want to retain existing mature trees.
Yeah, if I may, I might just note to that one, Deborah Adamson did mention that the majority of those trees are Norway maples, which are invasives. So I think her issue was that those trees have a lot of big limbs that drop and create issues for both, pedestrian or other usage issues, but not only that, then they could impact, they have apparently a ton of seedlings that they put out each year that otherwise affect, and I'll look into Karen, that if unmanaged will compromise the integrity of the other planting plans. So I think that was where Deborah looked at that as being, invasive versus new plantings and new offerings. So just that one note that's what she's proposing during the demo phase.
Yeah, no, I understand I guess these trees are distasteful to some degree, but if they're mature and healthy, and there's otherwise no reason to remove them, should you remove them? I'm asking somewhat of a rhetorical question. If they're providing canopy, if they're mature and healthy, they may be invasive, but is it really that bad? I mean, I don't know. I'll defer to the professionals, but I can think about that.
Yeah, of course.
And there might be some approach to kind of thin them out a little bit, but keep some so that you're at least still keeping some screening with that residential property. And then I agree, adding more native species in there. I totally understand, but I think we are losing, there's a lot of red back there in terms of grown trees that are being removed. I wanted to reiterate comment 4 is that I think where the variance is kind of being requested and the screening of the parking areas in the back. I think we've asked a number of times for some kind of rendering or visualization to show that view that is within the purview of the planning board, so just requesting that again. And then I think we already noted that there's more additional lighting potentially coming. And then I had some clerical corrections in terms of numbering of sheets and cleaning that up.
Great. Thanks, Natalie. Mr. Russo.
In addition to what Natalie had, we're looking at the fire department connection, where that's located. Right now, that's at, thank you, Natalie. That's at the rear end of the herb garden up front. That connection should be visible from the street, but it should also be in a location that's well maintained, so the fire department, so that needs to be looked at it. We had a number of minor comments with regards to the stormwater report, some modifications of the forms that are in there, some changes need to be done to the details, and soil testing still needs to be conducted with that, along with testing on the water system as far as water flows available. That's what we have.
Awesome, thank you. All right, board, any other questions or clarifications or comments?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
In looking at the site plan and the traffic flow at the
Portuguese share.
Yeah,
Well
that.
said.
Thank you. It's counterintuitive to go clockwise through there, and I think it's, you know, you just might want to think about, even though it's a little bit like, you know, a little bit more driving to go around counterclockwise, it might be simpler for people to follow that traffic pattern.
My brain goes that way too, so hopefully Rich's does as well.
Is that I mean, you have that car indicating a direction.
There's arrows on the street. There's arrows on the site plan showing that direction.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's highly indicative of intent. I missed that. Thank you.
Does it align with
addition-
REA's rendering, though, is the question. Yeah, okay.
In addition to the views of the rear of the building that we've been requesting, I've also been asking for views, actual views from the street, looking through the pine trees to the new addition, because the branching of the existing pine trees is fairly high. You know, it's got to be at least 5 feet above ground. So I'd like to make sure that this planting proposed provides adequate screening of the new structure. The planting plan still needs, like, there's not a key for the tags to the plants on the list. And you might want to think about having an herb garden in a very shadowy, shady spot on the north side of tall buildings.
Okay.
Board, anything else?
I just wanted to agree with, it sounded like SHPO was concerned about the particular stylistic direction the addition in the center was taking, which I have to agree with. It's sort of the original buildings are sort of like Queen Anne Victorian, and the two finials are kind of like French Empire, sort of different, sort of like Craig House kind of vibe. And it just seems like you just tone it down is more in line with what the recommendations are. The other thing I wanted to comment on, this isn't directly about this, but it has to do with the parking that we had talked about earlier. And I just wanted to say that this is probably the maximum amount of parking that you could fit on this site, right? And in municipalities that have a more prescriptive parking code, what that would mean would be you would have a smaller project. You'd have fewer hotel rooms, you'd have a smaller restaurant, right? So when I've done these projects and had those sort of hard limits and numbers that you had to hit, that was one of the impacts of the difference between a prescriptive code and this more sort of flexible parking thing. I'm not arguing against it one way or another, but I'm just saying it's a difference in the development impact. And this is one example of it, and there's others. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up.
I have one quick question about features on the existing historic home that might be removed by the addition. In addition to that bay window, and I was trying to find, I had taken pictures of the site a while, like a year ago, but I couldn't lay hands on them on my phone. Is that like a second story kind of Juliet porch also adjacent to that around the other side from the bay? Those are kind of a unique feature. I just, if that is an original, like porch above the, I'm trying to see it in the image here.
looks like, yeah.
That would be, also should be, I think, inventoried along with the,
Are you talking about the west side of the building?
I'm talking about the side of the building that faces 9D. And so I'm looking at the image on the plan, the photo, it's the upper left-hand photo in the grid of 6. And just around the corner from the face with the bay window, it appears like there is
Yes,
a second-story
there's a small
porch.
little-
Yeah, like I call it like a
porch
Juliet
that's-
porch or something, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think that ought to also be listed as a unique feature that would be removed by the addition.
Okay, we ready to go to the public hearing? Great. Anyone who's with us who would like to share their thoughts on this application, you're welcome to, at the mic, state your name, your address, and any thoughts you might have. Not all at once, though. Did you have something?
No.
Yeah.
Teresa Crowell, Village Street.
Okay.
I have one more
Yeah,
comment
please.
about the parking also, which the strategy seems very tenuous at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think, when we start to think about SECRA and lighting, parking, still sort of unresolved, it may be a little early for us, I don't know, board, let's discuss it, because we do have draft SECRA neg deck. Go ahead.
I
Did you have
literally
something?
had the exact same thought.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that? Knowing that you do have ZBA as well.
Yeah, part of the problem we have is this is a coordinated seeker review as far as the application is concerned. So it is, the planning board is the lead agency, so the zoning board will be unable to act until seeker is complete. Again, the parking analysis has been provided that we do, and we do have an agreement with the neighbors at the funeral home. We will pursue, we have an additional option that Rich mentioned tonight with the shuttling. So we have a fail-safe for those very rare instances where there would be a conflict of the additional off-street parking. So not only we have come to an agreement on that, the conditions of any approval would cite that if we don't, I mean, ultimately you'd have to have either an amendment appear before you again. So all of these potential impacts are being mitigated. And again, we did submit a lighting plan that meets the code's requirements. What we're trying to do is jazz up, I mean, quite literally, what it is that we can do, which is really a site planning issue once we know colors, lighting, the full landscaping plan that can kind of meld all these things together. So, with all due respect, I believe that those issues won't rise to the level of potentially significant adverse environmental impact, while we understand we're going to continue that review during site plan.
Yeah.
Just from a procedural standpoint, the zoning board won't be able to act until seeker is complete.
Is the screening an issue for sheep?
SECRA?
Screening, to the extent there's visual impacts, but it really only relates to not just any visual impact, but visual impacts for a designated view shed. And that is addressed in the draft neg deck. I'll just add, while the board has been having this discussion with the applicant, I've been updating the draft neg deck with proposed language to address some of the new information that we received tonight. Like, for example, the applicant tonight, in response to the comment about the parking, the fact that their proposal for the valet parking at those peak times does not work because of the violation of the fire code. Tonight, they offered for the first time that they would either offer a shuttle to a municipal parking lot during those peak times in the event the funeral home parking spaces are not available, or alternatively seek an agreement with another nearby property owner, for example, DIA. So I built that into.
So you're actively conditioning secret neg deck as we're.
It's not a condition neg deck, because it is part of, I mean, based on the representations that the applicant made
Fair.
tonight, it is part of the application, that's what they intend to do.
Meaning you're acknowledging those representations.
Yeah, and ultimately, and on the lighting part, I always hate to admit this, but I tend to agree with Mr. Palmer on this point.
Good job.
That they did provide a lighting plan
They did.
that
And it-
complies,
yes,
and
yeah.
they are looking to enhance that lighting plan to
Yeah.
make it better, but it doesn't, you know,
Yeah, I mean, it only gives me pause because it is still in development, right?
Yeah.
So I get it, I understand, you don't have to convince me, meaning that you have submitted something that we have in front of us that complies, right? But there is still active work on it. So as long as that, representation holds accurate, then I'm comfortable with the statement that, and one that we've acknowledged here, that the additional work to the lighting will be simply betterment to what's been submitted.
and ultimately, you still have a site plan and special use
Right.
permit before you. So this is making a secret determination that what they've presented doesn't rise to the level of a significant
adverse, yeah.
environmental impact, but that doesn't mean that it's the end of the road, right? There's still continuing site plan refinement that needs to happen.
Sure, yeah, fair. So I'm convinced. Any other thoughts on the matter, or do we want to entertain a motion to adopt secret neg deck?
I would agree.
Are you making a motion?
Well, I just wanted to allow for.
Ah. Okay, great. Well, I'll accept a motion then to adopt secret neg deck.
Motion.
Motion by Karen,
Second.
second by Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
And then, thank you. I think that's all aye. And then we have the LWRP consistency statement stating they are in compliance. So any other observations you want to share with us, Jennifer, or other discussion in relation to the LWRP consistency statement?
Yeah, I just wanted to check, and I didn't get a chance to. There was, so there's one under policy 23 and 23A in the draft. It does talk about, with respect to the historic structure, that there's a reference to there being minimal changes to the exterior. And I'm wondering if we should strike that, because we're still looking at the degree of changes, and we do have representations from the applicant that they're looking further into that to distinguish the historic structure from the new addition. We know it's going to change color, right? The historic building is going to change color. So I just call that out based on the discussion we had tonight.
Yeah, it's a matter of degrees, right? So
Yeah.
if it's not minimal, then, right, is it significant? No, not necessarily. So, yeah, I think just for the purposes of being clear, and at least not characterizing them as minimal, if they aren't, then perhaps, yeah, I would agree with striking that portion.
Yeah, and I think the policy is protect, restore, and enhance historic resources, encourage the restoration and adaptive reuse of large historic buildings, such as the mills on Fishkill Creek. So I think even if we take out reference to minimal, I think it still achieves that adaptive reuse, protecting, restoring, enhancing of historic buildings
Fair.
policy.
Any other thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, I just want to encourage saving that Juliet balcony that we noticed it wasn't being saved before. That's significant. I hadn't noticed it myself, to be honest. So SHPO did some good work.
Good, so I'll accept a motion to adopt LWRP consistency with that amendment.
Motion.
Motion by Len.
Second.
Second by David. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good luck at ZBA. Yes, you have something
If I
else?
may, might the board consider closing?
I was going to get to that.
Oh, excuse me, then, thank you for the good luck.
We could. I was thinking we might hold it over until you come back from ZBA, just for the heck of it.
If I may,
I think
no
we
one-
s-
Yep, sorry, Karen, go ahead.
Sorry.
ahead.
I think we still have some screening issues and what the back looks like for
Okay.
the public to
Yeah.
weigh in on.
Yeah, I think there's no harm.
No, notably, no one has come to the last 3 meetings.
Yeah,
so-
I've acknowledged that, but that's for the purposes of fairness and openness and all those wonderful things. Let's just, again, since there is no harm in keeping it open, let's give Teresa a chance to.
Can't argue that one. All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda, public hearing and continued review of applications for subdivision approval and site plan approval, residential six-unit multifamily dwelling, 193, 195 Main Street. First procedural item we have to do is open the public hearing, so I'll accept a motion to do so.
Motion.
Motion by David? Was that
Seconded.
David or Kevin?
Me, yes.
David.
Seconded by Len.
Second by Len, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, and I finally, after all these years, I got it right. Thanks for the thumbs up.
You did.
Good evening again.
I was waiting to jump in, but you did it.
For the record, Taylor Palmer with the law firm of Cuddy and Fader, here on behalf of the property owners and the applicants. Tonight, I am joined by our project team, including R.A. Siegel, our project architect, Mr. Mike Bodendorf of Hudson Land Design, our project engineer. Our traffic consultant is also Rich D'Andrea from Colliers. We're also joined by the applicant, or the applicants, I should say, this evening. As you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, we are here before you this evening to open the public hearing. Thank you, because usually we go back and forth about stopping me mid-sentence, so I get to stick to my
All right,
talking points tonight.
smoothing things out here. 2026 could be a great year for that.
So as typical, this application is site plan plus a subdivision for a lot merger. The last application was probably the first in a while where we haven't dealt with a subdivision or lot merger as part of the application. Here, we're proposing to install a new one and partial three-story addition to the existing mixed-use building at the property, and then we're merging those two lots that make up the premises. Before I turn it over to our consultants to review the site plan engineering materials and our traffic analysis, if I may, for the benefit of the public that's here this evening, I'll provide a brief overview of the property and the project that's before the board, and I'll highlight some of the changes that were included into our plan in response to comments that we submitted to you all after the January 13th meeting. So currently, the front portion of the property is improved by two existing three-story and partial one-story mixed-use buildings that front on Main Street. The three-story portions along Main Street with a one-story portion behind it. The existing buildings are occupied by Beacon Bread Company on the first floor, and then residential uses above in the existing buildings. The rear portion of the property is currently undeveloped, and this is where the proposed addition will be constructed. The majority of the property is presently classified in the CMS zoning district and in the HDLO, and then there's the smaller access lot that's in the city's T district. We abut property in the transitional district and, of course, CMS along the frontage. Multifamily dwellings are permitted by right in the CMS district, of course, with the restriction on first floor 50 feet back from Main Street. The property is next to the Cliff Street public parking lot. The surrounding area does include a mixed use of commercial, residential, institutional, and mixed-use buildings with retail, shops, eateries, banks, professional services, with residential typically above those uses. There are also residential developments, including single-family and two-family, south of the property and then north along the Main Street corridor. And then there's also residential development, The proposed addition will consist of two parts. The one-story portion containing a passage linking the existing building to the proposed new features, and enclosed walk-in cooler for use by the ground floor tenant of the existing building, and then a vented trash enclosure for use by the tenants of the existing building and future tenants in the addition. A three-story portion that contains the multifamily residential component, which will be 6 units, so there are 2 one-bedroom and 4 two-bedroom units. We've included 1 ADA accessible parking space, based on discussions with the city's building inspector, as well as a turnaround area for that space. This is compliant with the city code, which requires a minimum of 0, God bless you, and a maximum of 6 spaces for the project. We did include a concrete walkway that will be connecting that proposed parking space to the residential entrance lobby for the addition, and 2 steel safety bollards are proposed near the residential entryway to that addition. Access will be provided via the existing entrance-exit driveway on the smaller parcel out to Cliff Street. This will accommodate both vehicular and pedestrian access, which is appropriate given the limited vehicular access that is anticipated through this driveway. Signage regarding that pedestrian usage, which the board requested, has been added as well, just to indicate again that it's used for both purposes. To facilitate vehicular moving through the property, and in particular access to the proposed accessible space, we obtained a private easement with the owner of 8 Cliff Street, which is the small corner of that lot. So there was a little corner there so that the vehicles could get over without crossing onto their property, or at least with the benefit of an easement to do so. That agreement has been recorded, and a copy was submitted with our last submission on January 28th. The entry driveway that connects out to Cliff Street and the front courtyard for the addition are proposed to be developed with permeable concrete pavers and grass grid pavers, with grass filling that void. The easement area on 8 Cliff will also include this paver design. The proposed paver modifications will also contribute to try and make it a more pedestrian-feeling access way. A Belgian block curb was also proposed to be installed on the perimeter of the driveway, abutting that residence at 8 Cliff, to provide protection for the adjacent property. Minor additional site improvements are proposed, including landscaping, lighting, internal walkways, water and sewer, and stormwater management infrastructure. For the benefit of the board, I'm also provide a brief summary of what we did in our most recent submission to respond to your comments at the January 13th meeting. As I noted, we did include that driveway access signage to alert limited vehicle users of the shared pedestrian usage. An additional lighting fixture will be mounted on the existing structure at 8 Cliff Street to better illuminate that entryway. The applicant has discussed this feature, we understand, with the neighbor at 8 Cliff Street, and we understand that a verbal agreement for that installation has been approved. Naturally, we'll provide a written agreement of same for the benefit of the board. I understand that property owner may also be here this evening for the public hearing. Further, the interior configuration of the one-story portion of the addition has been adjusted and widened to accommodate additional refuse containers, which we discussed at the last meeting, for both the commercial and residential tenants, and then RIA will speak to that. 2-yard dumpster and 2 95-gallon rolling containers will be provided for use for the existing restaurant within the building. Again, the trash enclosure today being on the city's municipal lot. 5 95-gallon rolling containers, 3 for trash and 2 for recycling, and will be dedicated for use by the residential tenants. Residential refuse will be picked up weekly. The restaurant may schedule more frequent pickups as is needed for Beacon Bread, and again, Ari will speak to that operationally. The previously proposed false windows within the stairway have been removed. That was a comment discussed with the board to present a cleaner facade treatment and design in that area. We did include a lighting plan, which included the fixture types and luminaire schedules, so that was added to our plans. The grass grid paver strip on the south side access has been widened to increase the landscaped area to about 10.2%. Finally, a construction staging area has been incorporated into the plans. If we need more, we'll certainly have to do so with a private temporary access agreement with neighbors, similar to what's being provided for those neighbors at this time. Lastly, but not leastly, we did have an information session about the project on February 4th, which took place at one of the applicant's restaurants, where we invited neighbors, the same list of folks that would be here for the public hearing, to talk about the project and see some feedback about it. The applicant also received a number of letters supporting the application. We do apologize to Mercedes. We tried to keep collecting, but they just kept coming in, so we had about 60 or so letters of support and some additional letters that were submitted online. We also understand that 3 letters were submitted directly to the board by property owners of adjacent businesses at the 197 and 199 Main Street and 201 to 211 Main Street properties that had requested access to the rear of their properties via this Cliff Street driveway. Important for the record, again, we're getting to private agreements. We have no knowledge of any recorded easements or other agreements providing access to those rear of the properties. So again, there are no, the letters didn't provide any evidence otherwise, and from our review of the application, there are no existing easements or other agreements. However, we do have evidence of some prior agreements between Little King and Flora Goodtime, who did provide comments to your board, where they actually had agreements with the property owner that they themselves terminated in the past. So with Little King, and we'll provide these to you all in a submission for your record, there had been a prior agreement for $50 a month access, and that was terminated back in April of 25. Same is true with Flora Goodtime, which was terminated back in July of 2024. That they were no longer using those spaces or required any access. Of course, it's also important to note, notwithstanding that all those are private agreements, that these business owners can still access their property through the archway or tunnel at 201 to 211 Main Street. With that, I'm going to turn it over to RA just to walk through the proposed design for the project, and then we'll have Rich speak to the parking plan.
Yes, so I think Taylor covered almost everything, but we can talk trash a little bit. So I did.
I'm surprised he didn't take that one too.
Yeah,
That's one very Taylor.
I'm learning. But yeah, so we did update the, that trash enclosure area by slightly adjusting the size of the walk-in cooler. And so now we can, fit more of the rolling bins. I did show for the restaurant a rolling 2-yard dumpster, which, I mean, they could do it that way. They could do it with rolling bins. And then what I also did was I did some research on how, waste is calculated. From what I can tell for the apartments, we, have more than enough for a once-a-week pickup, based on the number of apartments, the trash that they are, known to generate, and what can fit in a bin. And then, like I said, we show a 2-yard dumpster in addition to a couple of, recycling bins for the restaurant. They would have their own private agreement with pickup, and if they needed to, they could pick up, more than once a week. But, from what I can tell from a number of different sources, what we're providing, should be comfortably enough there.
So, yeah, let's talk a little bit more in detail about that. So what you're positing is that the number of, it looks like 7 bins plus the larger dumpster.
Right.
That will cover the needs for both garbage and recycling for each of the units?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be curious to, maybe not now, but if you could submit kind of what your basis for that is?
Yeah, I can provide that analysis.
Yeah.
I mean, I found it on a number of locations that, this one had a nice, calculator.
Handy dandy calculator.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, I would caution you to make sure you kind of err on the larger side.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
'Cause-
it definitely, from, the research I did, it's comfortably within a 1-week pickup time,
We'll see.
especially for the residential.
Let's just talk about procedure, though, a little bit, right? How does the commercial waste and then the residential waste make its way to pickup? Or otherwise, how does it get cycled?
Yeah, they would have to, someone from the building, whoever's managing it, for the residential would take those bins out to Cliff Street.
So that poor soul living in apartment 101 has got to sort of live through the process of an individual dragging 7, residential in one dumpster past their living room on 2 sides, and of course underneath their bedroom, down that, is it gravel intended to be?
No.
That's concrete?
Concrete, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, again, they're manually taking this down past the building to the easement and then all the way down to the street.
Right.
And then there'll be now 7 additional bins plus this dumpster on Cliff Street in front of other private residences. That's the intent. That doesn't sound optimal to me, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of works that way now, but they go through the municipal lot, and then, you know, or the restaurant does, and, but, you know, otherwise, yeah, they'll have to do that
It
once
sort
a
of
week,
works
I think.
that way. It's a much shorter distance, and there's no
Right.
building there. There's no residential units there right now
Yeah.
to sort of need to kind of live through this weekly process of listening to cans being dragged past
Yeah.
their, you know, look.
No, I mean, I
It
understand.
falls
what-
into the
yeah.
category of,
Yeah.
can you do it? Sure. Should you do it? Nah.
Yeah, well, I
But-
mean, I definitely understand
great.
that, and it is once a week. I mean, you know, we could, if it, and I understand it would make it more palatable, you know, we could have sound, you know, triple glaze on those two windows, and,
Yeah, look, all I'm saying is just like when you're looking at something like this and you think about good planning, that doesn't necessarily fall into the category of good planning. Like I said, you could do it
right, no, yeah.
to your detriment, right? But whatever.
I mean, in the situation that we're proposing, that's the route out, and, you know, we could work on mitigating.
Yeah,
the
it falls
effects
into
of
the
that.
category of the least worst, you know,
Yeah.
alternative.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
there's concern you're gonna be blocking the driveway and the sidewalk
Right.
at the end there.
Yeah.
You know, no
And
matter
it-
who's gonna bring it out, you're now impeding people from walking through that
Yeah.
area.
I mean, that's a once-a-week thing in Beacon, you know, I mean, people
Yeah,
put
but
their
you're
cans
talking,
out.
you've got a number of bins and a dumpster.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's
You're
different.
building a wall.
And it impacts the parking that's there too. The cars on the curb. There's a limited amount, so the trucks can't access it if there's a car parked in front of the bins. They have to drag it around.
Not to be trashy, but we're looking into it.
Doesn't work if you try it. It's only funny if Aria does it.
We're gonna, again, we are looking at with all seriousness, we are looking at whether there's other options. Of course, coming out through Main Street, there's a number of ways to achieve this. We're trying not to, you know, there's a number of ways maybe we can split up some of the options. So we'll look at that. We hear you. We're trying to take the task. Today we enlarged it. We've modified it to reflect that, but we're going to continue the trash
Yeah,
compaction.
yeah, and again, you're creating a situation not just for your potential renters, not great, but then, you know, the surrounding community, right?
Yeah, no,
That's not optimal.
Yeah, yeah, we understand that, and we'll look into mitigating. And then, the other thing, you know, we updated the building design, based on what we talked about last time. We took the windows out of that stair area, you know, tightened up some of the way the first floor windows hit the, you know, the base around the building. And, we updated the elevations to go along with the renderings. So we're also gonna, you know, now that we have these changes set up, we're gonna get the photorealistic renderings to reflect that.
Okay,
Yep, we're going to Rich.
great.
So, somewhat as a refresher for the board, but also for the public, so we had submitted a traffic and parking analysis in September for the project. We had identified, per the code, that there's the code allows a maximum of 6 spaces for the site. We're providing 1 space on the property, ADA accessible space. The other 5 spaces would need to be accommodated by off-site parking, public parking along Cliff Street or some of the other roadways in the area, or municipal parking.
Same spot you're looking to put the trash cans, right?
Yes. So we had done parking observations early morning, midday, evening hours to identify what the parking utilization was in the area and see what kind of availability of what there was for parking. We looked at, I think, a 500-foot radius approximately. And in general, we found that there was pretty decent availability for parking.
When?
In the overnight hours, when we're always going to need, 5 spaces. If you go out there on Cliff Street right now, you would see that there's spaces available. Even with the snow that's out there.
What do your observations tell you for parking on the weekends?
Sure. On the weekends, there's more utilization, especially in the middle of the day. And at those times, somebody looking to park there may have to park a little further away.
A little further away.
Yeah.
A lot further away.
Okay.
There's no parking down there on the weekends. Yep.
Our opinion is that there is enough parking for when we're going to need it for the 5 spaces that we're going to have to accommodate.
So the folks potentially occupying these apartments are going to also live there during the weekend, right? So you're saying that based on your observations, and I'd love to see some further, written analysis of this, but it's your belief that these residents are going to not have a challenge finding convenient parking.
I mean, I guess it depends on what your definition of convenient parking would be. I mean,
Again,
our analysis radius was 500 feet, which is a typical radius for parking for residential areas when you're talking about something like this.
Again, you're creating a situation where, based on all observations, that part of Main Street on weekends when parking is needed, especially for residents who would like probably the convenience, especially if they're renting an apartment and paying good money for that, of parking conveniently close to their apartment. That's not the case here on the weekends.
It's completely understood. I mean, I've used this example before for this specific project. It's anecdotal. It's my experience. I park 400 feet away every single day from my apartment.
Where do you live?
I live in Connecticut, in the downtown area.
Have you ever tried to park in downtown Beacon on the weekends?
Sure.
In this area?
I've been here. I come here all the time.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to argue with you. I think everybody here is going to tell you that it's a bit of a stretch to say that people on the weekends, when you're adding apartments to this particular area, are going to have a hard time finding convenient parking. That's a fact. So,
Part of what we are trying to do, Mr. Chairman, as you know, is provide a diversity of housing opportunities, right? We're talking about Main Street.
that's a very good spin on it.
We are, well, with all due respect, we also have tenants in the existing building that would speak likely to what the existing opportunities are for parking. They live there now and experience that. So we're talking about a few additional units. We hear you, and we have the report reviewed by your expert as it is concerning our off-street parking, and it is provided within the code. We fully hear the concern that's expressed, but we are presenting materials based on empirical data and what is available. So I appreciate, you're right. Some folks, and I've gone many times to try and park, whether it's the Wild or whatnot. If you know South Street, you know whatever streets, you have to know your way around. So fortunately, if you're local and
Look,
you do this.
I hear what you're saying, and I'm getting tired of hearing and even seeing written analyses by engineers based on metrics that say everything's going to be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
And look, we're doing a good thing because we're adding, yeah, great, that's wonderful. You're adding accessible, affordable units. It still remains that the real world experience,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the only point I'm making, is that parking is super challenged down there. So don't argue with me on the fact. It is a fact. All right? I'm stating that for the record.
Okay, thank
Yet again. So again, we can do all of the analyses that we want. The real world situation plays out very differently, and you have to agree with that. And it becomes very challenging. For, again, it's a big city. It's a downtown area. Sure, are you going to have to find a parking spot maybe a couple of blocks away? That's just the fact of living in a big city. But again, you need to acknowledge that it's an inconvenient fact.
Understood.
Thank you.
And then last but not least, we do have the applicant. I just wanted to make a quick comment.
Okay.
Good evening, Chairman Gunn. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Andy Barisha. I'm a local realtor in Beacon, New York, and a member of the proposed project team. First off, I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to present this project, and thank you for your time for considering the proposed addition. My family has been a part of Beacon community for 40 years and have been actively involved in the city's growth through responsible real estate investment, long-term property management, and local businesses. We take pride on maintaining quality housing and strong relationships with our tenants, many of whom have been there for over 15 years. In addition to real estate, my family has also contributed to Beacon through local service industries, including Beacon Pizza, which was opened in 1990, then moving on to Brothers Trattoria, which we know now, which was opened in 1998, which has served the community for more than 2 decades. These experiences have given us a deep appreciation for Beacon's character and importance of thoughtful, community-focused development. As a realtor working in this market every day, I firsthand see the housing needs on Main Street and throughout the city. The project is designed to address those needs by providing well-planned rental units that align with Beacon's character and long-term vision. We believe that this project will be a positive addition to the city, supporting responsible growth and enhancing streetscape. We also met with surrounding neighbors last Wednesday at Brothers Trattoria, where we addressed questions and provided a clear understanding of the proposed addition, which we additionally have received a significant number of letters in support of the project, reflecting the community's belief and its benefit to Beacon. Thank you again for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, let's, unless there's anything else, no. So let's go to our consultants. We'll start with Ms. Quinn.
Okay. I had 3 remaining comments for the review of this. One is kind of just a cleanup or notation. One is we've talked a lot about the driveway easements that currently exist, the ones that exist there. And I think we received documentation. I think John and I have kind of requested a number of times. They should be noted on the, I know you guys went through a lot of research to find those easements, to document those easements, but now's a cleanup period that on the site plan, they should kind of be noted and illustrated where they, boundaries if possible. So just, I think that's a remaining comment. I did note that we had previously noted that the landscape area wasn't meeting the 10% requirement. It looks like the plan's now been updated, that we do have the minimum, I think it's 10.2% of landscaped area. I just kind of had a question, and maybe the applicant could walk us through this again. We've seen this on a few projects where we'll kind of see landscaped areas just like squeezed in the available spaces. And on here, there's a few spaces that are kind of in between the existing building and the proposed building, and now a 1-story kind of trash room freezer. So just kind of want to talk a little bit more about the accessibility of this green space, of this landscape space, and whether or not these plants are going to be able to survive in here. So maybe you could walk us through the landscaping intent for those a little bit more. And then my third comment was about refuse. I think it would be helpful to see the calculations. We should note that we're talking about, I think it's 10 units. I think there's 4 inside the existing and then 6 proposed, right? So we're looking at trash for those 10 units plus the restaurant space. So I think seeing those calculations would be helpful. I did my own, and it looked like we were coming close, but we were coming pretty close. And then my other question was just about the larger restaurant refuse, the 2-yard, that may have to go out more than once a week, right? Because depending on the restaurant. I was just not, that's a bigger unit and how that's getting out too. So I think we talked a lot about the storage of it. I just wasn't sure, it is the intent to wheel it out. Someone's gonna be wheeling out that large 2-yard as well. And then I think on that, some of the plans show different configurations of that room. The floor plans don't match the site plan. So we can just, that's just a clerical cleanup.
Thank you.
Yep.
Did you want to address Natalie's questions about the planting?
Yeah, I'll have REA and Mike come speak to that. I will note that Beatty and Watson is plotting the easement on the plat. So, I mean, we can put it on both the site plan and the plat, but it'll be on both.
Taylor, was a title search done of the property to see if there is an easement or any agreements for access to the neighboring adjacent parcels at all?
Well, we reviewed our properties, right? So any additional research that the neighbors would provide, I mean, again, would be theirs to provide, but anything in there's nothing encumbering our property that we've seen. So we didn't do a separate title search, but the information we have shows that there's nothing encumbering our lots.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Russo?
We do have some cleanup on the plans, as Natalie discussed with the easements. I am questioning the mounting of the 2 lights on the neighboring structure at 8 Cliff Street. You said you're working on an agreement, or there's verbal in place. You know, who's going to be responsible to maintain those lights? And then with those lights there, what is the impact on the adjacent neighbor across the access? You know, there's no lights there now, and now you're going to have lights shining into the side of the residence on the opposite side of the drive. So I think that needs to be looked at, and the inconvenience it may cause on those residents there. Going back to the trash, I mean, we have a number of bins in that trash room and only one opening. How do people get to the other trash bins in the back? Everything is just packed into that room. I'm not understanding how people are getting to the different bins. With regards to the building and elevations, one of your renderings is still showing crosswalk across the back of the parking lot, the city's parking lot, and walking across. The rest of it is just some cleanup stuff that they can take care of.
Thanks, John. Question, as far as your landscaping, you're indicating the turf grass sort of border down the access drive. Is that part of your calc?
Yes.
Yep. Any other thoughts, questions?
Yes. I would like to see an elevation of the one-story connector there, and how that relates to the existing building. I too am curious about how the bins are actually getting in and out of there. It's a little bit confusing on the different plans. And it would be helpful to have some dimensions of like how wide the concrete walks are around the planting island, because it looks a little tight operationally. And I think, you know, grass pavers as 10% of the landscaping seems not adequate to me.
Great. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that when we had discussed some of the things that we're wanted to look forward on future changes to the code and whatnot, one of the things was the 10% landscaping requirement. In some conditions, it's creates a forced and pinched sort of thing that doesn't really provide much of amenity. It's just a compliance, you know, and most of the time it's a bare compliance, and it doesn't really provide the amenity that probably was intended. The other thing I wanted to mention about parking is that if we had a more prescriptive parking, and I'm not advocating it, we're just working with the laws that we have, this might have had 3 units and 3 parking spots, and the impact would be much more limited. It may not have made sense to do it, you know, but I just wanted to, that's one of the things that we should understand, the impact of the code changes that we've had.
Well, there's again, the argument by the applicant has been made that there only is a need for one, you know, and that, you know, other surrounding parking will reasonably be able to accommodate the other need, right? It's kind of down to us to agree, and you at least hear from me that I'm not necessarily sure that I agree. So I'd like to at least dive into really what gives you that, based on your analyses, your detailed understanding of how you're proposing this is not going to be a problem.
Yeah, and it's within the code that it's within the planning board's jurisdiction.
Exactly what I'm
There's a
getting at.
range, right, from 0 to the maximum.
Right.
And so if it falls within that maximum and the applicant says we comply, that's not necessarily true. The planning board gets to determine within that range and based on facts presented what the requirement is.
Right.
But as a practical matter, if any ambitious developer, right, is going to want to maximize the value of their property, and they're going to propose the maximum value, you know, the maximum return they're going to get, I think that if if there's a situation, there's some situations where it would be preferable to not, to make a higher planning, parking requirement or other things. It might be easier on the applicant, where this thing, it wouldn't be going on for months and then all of a sudden it gets denied. Because it's really difficult to put that sort of thing on an applicant, you know? They've gone through all this process.
Well,
and
look,
then-
I'll just say
right?
this, I've been dubious about the parking on this particular application for a while, among other things. So again, it is sort of part of the onus on the applicant to make the case for why what they're proposing is adequate. And I'm not yet convinced, and yeah, we've reviewed this quite a bit over the past couple of months, but it really comes down to us holding the line on what we think is appropriate, right?
Well, so, to your point, I was just looking up the language. This law seems to be coming up quite a bit tonight, but with regard to the planning board shall determine the appropriate number of off-street parking spaces within the range provided in the table as part of its application review and based on the context of the property, including but not limited to, as applicable, the size of the parcel, proposed uses, existing buildings on the parcel, especially if they are designated as historic, availability of public and street parking, access to public transit, a parking study, shared parking arrangements, land banking, compliance with ADA, and any state requirements. But the point being, the first two things here are, well, the first thing is the context of the property, and then beyond that, size of the parcel, proposed uses, existing buildings. How many parking spaces are currently behind this building?
There are no parking spaces behind the building.
Every time I've gone through there, there's been cars parked there.
There are no parking spaces, while there may be cars parked there, there are no parking spaces on the site plan for the site.
How many cars are normally parked there?
I'm looking at the applicant. Again, there are no parking spaces provided on this site.
Maybe
So,
we should-
and if I may, just one important point Mr. Jensen just mentioned is that we look at a parking study. The applicant prepared a parking study, and then the city has its independent consultant review the empirical data. So we hear you with respect to lived experience, but the reporting and your consultant looked at this for that and implemented and considered those comments in making their adjustments in relationship to what we're proposing. They looked at the project, which is a CMS zoned property. It's designed effectively to not provide parking. In many instances, CMS properties don't have any rear parking, and most projects that we've talked about on Main Street, which are infill for the most part, even close off access from Main Street and don't provide parking because, again, it's intended to provide the walkability and create that cityscape. We're not Fishkill, right? We're Beacon. So with respect to what the board should consider, it is the empirical data that's before you, and the applicant has provided that, and your board has reviewed it through your consultant, but we're going to continue to help justify that. I heard Mr. Chairman, and I hear you, Mr. Jensen. We're looking to help explain that better, and Rich is going to have to provide some more information to help that.
Yeah. Can I just clarify one thing about the urban intent of reducing the parking requirements? Across the street, there's a M&T Bank building, right?
With a drive-through.
That was the intent in the 70s, was to have Beacon be a one-story buildings with adjacent
Yep.
parking off of Main Street. What you don't want is parking
The district
on Main
behind it was
Street,
literally
right?
referred to as the parking
Absolutely.
district.
It increases walkability. You want all the storefronts to be, all of Main Street to be filled up. This isn't the application here. This is an infill in the back part of a lot. It doesn't fulfill the same design intent or whatever that the reduction of parking requirements is meant to create an urban, impact on the urban
Right.
fabric, let's say.
Well, this was the replacement. I think you all talked about it this evening, the famous or infamous 1964 exception, where we'd go to the Historical Society, find what was here historically, looked at what was there, and justify it through those means, right? Something a bit more archaic than what has been re-implemented or redesigned or reconstructed, which is your new code to reflect the realities of Main Street and a growing transition from Main Street into the residential or more single-family development, which quite literally removed the parking district from the code and created the transition district, which this property is collectively designed because it anticipated and the comp plan called for these types of other housing operations, and to be able to provide additional housing on Main Street for someone working there, different of income, different rental prices that it would drive in the market, are more consistent with what the code is calling for. So while we hear you with respect to the operations and not everything's perfect, this is an underutilized site, period. It is. And this is trying to adaptively or reuse it or to improve it to create something that is both needed and would, I think, better. And even the letters that you received, those that weren't just in support, the 60 letters that were in support, you had some letters that were asking or inquiring about the access, but said, this is going to better the property. That's those surrounding the property. That's this betterment of this site. So there's a lot.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying it would be, we need to be constantly aware and where we can improve and make things better going forward.
Yeah, and this is unique too, Mr. Chairman. We are directly next to a city parking lot. I mean, this is not I know, it's one of those instances, you walk into it, right?
You let me know when you find a spot available in that parking lot. Yep. Again, I get it. I get the context.
I have street view pictures of the same pickup truck that parks in front of the site for years.
Yeah, I get the context that we're talking about. It's an urban environment. It's Main Street. I get the history, and I get the intent. I'm stating for the record, and maybe this is a broader issue, but that we are at a point now where through this, we're creating more demand for parking, right? It's simple as that.
Yes.
That is a fact.
Yes.
And that in an already challenged area, again, the analyses and our consultants do a phenomenal job, can say one thing, but I'm telling you the real world experience is different.
We're going to look at it.
And so, I want to continue to make sure that the board, those observing who are, also a part of this community, yourselves as well, know that we're going to always put a real close look at this concern, because we are, a successful city now. And we're now having to deal with the impacts of those successes. And they're real. And so I want to reinforce that on paper, can you do it? Sure. But there are aspects of it that are concerning, and that's one of them. And I can't go as chair without vocalizing those concerns.
Right. And as former Mayor Casale used to say, and I can hear it ringing in my head, we used to have a parking problem. That's when you could roll the bowling ball down Main Street, right? So.
Never heard of him.
I have a real quick question, and I'll look, but in the letters of support received, have any come from the residents on DeWint Street that are immediately, their backyards are kind of behind the development?
I'm not sure. I'm looking at Mr. Berger, but I'm not sure. But it is a hearing tonight, so folks will...
Yep. All right. So speaking of public comment, we do have a number of letters. Thank you. They've been entered into the record. If you did submit a letter and you're here to also comment, you don't necessarily have to repeat yourself. You sure can, but don't feel you need to. But again, the public hearing is now open, and so we're ready for comment. Anyone who's here who wants to share their thoughts on the matter, please do. State your name and your address, and we usually put a 3-minute limit on comments.
Sure. Hi, members of the Planning Board, Chairman Gunn. My name is Corinne Bryson. I'm the owner of Flora Good Times, located at 197 Main Street. We've been operating for 7 years, and we are serving local residents and visitors, and we do events. We are a full-service florist and plant shop. We also employ 5 local residents year-round. I understand and support thoughtful design and development in our area. My concern is not with the project, but with how the current plan directly impacts the safety and functionality of the existing businesses. After reviewing the submitted site drawings, I wanted to draw attention to the area labeled Area Inaccessible. There's a little white box right below Beacon Bread Company with the stockade fence and locked gate. This is the backyard of my business, an outdoor sales area that is used regularly and is in fact accessible, albeit locked because I have inventory back there. I've submitted some images to the board of the rear of my store, where there is also an emergency exit sign. So it is the rear egress of my store. As currently proposed, the new construction would sit very close to the rear of our building and our neighboring building at 199 and would effectively create an enclosed corridor. This would essentially eliminate what is currently our rear means of egress. The rear exit is a required safety feature for our shop and anyone inside the building. Removing or obstructing a required exit creates a serious life safety concern. In the event of fire or emergency, having multiple accessible exits is critical. This is not just a business issue, it affects employees, customers, delivery drivers, and anyone inside the building. Our shop regularly has customers, staff, and vendors moving through the space, including this inaccessible area, as marked on the plans. We also receive deliveries and occasionally have move heavy items through the rear of the building. Losing that access would make normal operations more difficult and, more importantly, less safe. It would also funnel all of my business through the front of the store, creating more congestion on Main Street. This issue also affects the neighboring building, which would be placed in a similar enclosed condition. I believe any existing building should retain safe and code-compliant means of egress. I respectfully ask the board to require that any approved plan maintain safe, code-compliant rear egress for the existing buildings, and at minimum, I ask that this issue be addressed before any approvals are granted.
Thank you.
I also wanted to speak to the fact that I have used that easement before. I've been here for 7 years, and that was prior. It's a very tight space, and the garbage cans are already an issue with the existing homes that are there. So,
thank you.
Note on that. Thank you.
We don't usually do back-to-back comments, but I think it's important just to mention in particular on this application, the inaccessible area is meaning a surveyor note. So the surveyor cannot access that area. It has nothing to do with, we're not making it inaccessible. So to be clear, the inaccessibility note is that of a surveyor who couldn't go onto someone else's property to evaluate their outdoor area. This will not prevent any access to the rear of that building.
Just a point, just a technical point. What's the distance of the narrow part? Do we know? What's the width?
Sorry, I didn't hear
Where
the
it says
question.
97.45 feet, there's a narrow part where it's going into the area inaccessible, let's say, to the surveyor, right? I'm just wondering what the width of that is.
The width is a little over 2.5 feet.
2.5 feet.
For a distance of 2.5 feet as well.
Just curious. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Maybe there's a question for Brian. Is there 2 means of egress requirement for the retail on the?
I've not been in that building. There isn't always necessarily 2 means of egress required.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't know, I've not been in there.
Is there a fence plan? I'm sorry, is this going to be, do you know?
You asking me? What?
Yeah, I'm asking you. I can ask that. Is there a fence adjacent to that landscaped area that's going to force that 2.5 foot wide, or is it just a boundary? Can RA answer that?
I guess we'll have RA look into it and advise.
Okay. All right. Again, public hearing is still
Yeah,
open.
sorry to go out of tune, but I know that was important, just to reference what the inaccessibility comment.
Yep. Anyone else here who'd like to share their thoughts? Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Michael Vossen. I'm a resident of Beacon, and about 2.5 hours ago, I sat down at the Yankee Clipper and wrote a little something based on my knowledge of the family. So I'm here to speak about Jeff Barisha and his family with regards to his character and performance as a landlord. He's been here for 37 years plus, and I've been his tenant at 465 Main Street, Brothers Trattoria, for over 15 of those years. He's always been attentive to building issues and available at any hour to address concerns. The sidewalk in front of our building is always promptly cleared of snow, which I'm very proud of, by the way, because not everyone in our area is quite as diligent, and I think that's really commendable, especially this winter. So where was I? Whenever I've needed household appliances, fixtures replaced, a stove, refrigerator, faucet, it's always been delivered within a day's notice. You know, he provides his end of our bargain without being overbearing or invasive. And I think that's really important as well, because I don't feel like there's someone over my shoulder all the time. I have a problem, he addresses it, we work together, we move forward. And there's that type of rapport and relationship, and I certainly appreciate that. During the COVID period, he and his family used their restaurant's downtime to invest in their business, meaning Brothers, with extensive renovation, coming back even stronger than before. I think that says a lot and speaks a lot as to them being members of the community who have been here for quite some time, since the 90s, and have really, you know, worked together as a family unit and come up with the community. I think that's awesome, and employed a lot of people. You know, this admirable work ethic is part of what helps embody him as a prime example of the American dream, coming from overseas to build and achieve goals. And there's no denying that, you know, you can see the change in Beacon, and the Barishas have definitely been a huge part of that, which I admire greatly. We need more people like this in our community, and diverse, affordable housing that they're willing to provide is certainly beneficial, as opposed to some of these penthouses and everything else that we have sometimes going up. So I think this just observations as someone who's been here for 15 years and been happy to work with them. A couple other comments just as far as living on Main Street, the garbage thing. There was talk about like garbage cans being dragged. I take that over the sound of the garbage truck in the back of the building any day of the week, you know what I mean? Like, you live in the city, there's always some level of noise. And some of it you sort of come to appreciate. I mean, the sound of the swishing tires in the snow and the rain, that's peaceful to me now. I've been here a long time, you know? Even the sound of, I don't know if they're pounding chicken cutlet or chopping up food for the restaurant out back, but I'm serious. It's like a Zen moment for me at this point. So these are just things you come to know, you know. And as far as parking's horrible everywhere, no matter East End, West End, whatever. And I can't even just attribute it to the tourism and commerce aspect, because quite frankly, I know a lot of those people, and there are people who live here who don't move their cars for weeks and months on end and have multiple vehicles. And the ticketing is not what it used to be. I know that's a whole other issue, but I'm absolutely that Karen who 5 days after a snowstorm, I'm calling the Beacon Police and asking them to come do the right thing, because we're our own worst enemies in that respect as well. So it's just something to acknowledge. The planning part is certainly proactive and important and crucial, appreciated, but let's also work on enforcing too, you know, on the back end of things. But anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Members, Chairman. My name is Ali Jacob. I'm a resident of 465 Main Street, Beacon, one of the tenants of the Barisha family. I'm just here this evening in support of the Barisha Property Management. I have known the Barisha brothers and family for 20 years, since I first discovered Beacon in 2006. They're outstanding members of this community for 30 years plus. They have supported and contributed to the growth of this once small, unknown city to the extremely popular destination it is today, through their dedication to hard work, commitment to continued growth, and their deep love for this city and its people. And that's a fact. The Barisha brothers are not absentee landlords. They are totally invested in this community, providing unparalleled service and rental opportunity without the practice of price gouging that we're all experiencing currently in Beacon regarding essential services such as rental accommodation. The unconscionable increases in rental properties is a fact, as Beacon continues to grow with the competitive housing market and shortage contributing to overall cost of living here in Beacon being significantly more than the national average. In 2024, I had the great pleasure of being an invitee to an important occasion to honor and celebrate Mr. Ken Barisha and his family, organized by this community in recognition for their very commitment and ongoing dedication to all of us here in Beacon. I am here today to ask you to please continue to celebrate and support the Barisha brothers in their newly proposed building project here on Main Street, and in their efforts to provide affordable housing so that Beacon can be a home for many and not just a luxury for few. I hear and I understand your concerns about the parking. I am the real world experience. I concur with Mike and many of his points. It's more important to have affordable housing options here in Beacon, to be able to remain living in Beacon. And on the weekend, yes, it's challenging, but what's more important is walkability and affordability. So thank you for your time and attention regarding the project building at 193, 195 Main Street, Beacon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rochelle Tucker Young, and I've been a Beacon resident since 1978. And my husband and I own 2 houses on Beacon Street. And I got the notice for 47 Beacon Street, 4749. And I've been knowing Ken since the 1990s when him and his family opened Beacon Pizza, the pizzeria, where Key Food is now, in that plaza. And then see him and his family further open up Brothers Trattoria. And, you know, just like the man before us mentioned about coming from another country and, you know, being an asset to the community, and you see the growth with him and his family, and it's beautiful. And I feel the same way, just as I held on to our property since 1985. My husband and I own the 2 houses on Beacon Street. And we held on to them because we cared as landlords. And just like I hear his tenants say how, you know, he's a good landlord and keeps the rents, you know, below the average, what other people, you know, charge. Him and his family would be a total asset to build this new building. Plus, I'm hearing issues about parking and the garbage, I'm sure, and the back, the emergency exit, you know, the back door of this young lady's store. I'm sure things can be put not to block the back door, you know, and I'm sure they will be helpful and make sure things are correct with their tenants and their property. So I put a lot of faith because they've shown it. They've been an example, just like others have testified. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Alexandra Cabrera. I am Minerva Cabrera's granddaughter. She resides at 8 Cliff Street. We spoke to the Berishas about the easement, and we are okay with that. I do have a question about the garbage, but that can be discussed a later time. When we were talking about the easement and the parking, he wanted to ensure that there wouldn't be extra parking spaces in the back. There are already people that drive through that driveway to go to the building that is under that blue right there, because there's big park spots, I'm sure you guys know. And they drive fast through that driveway. They don't drive slow. And it is an issue, so coming up with that one space in the back was really helpful. I know Cliff Street has terrible parking, and the municipal parking is not big enough. But we really didn't have any issues with the building being built, just maybe some cleanups around everything. But that was it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Planning Board. My name is Katrina Figueroa. I've been a lifelong resident of Beacon. I came here to show my support for the project at 193, 195 Main Street. I think it would be a positive addition to the city of Beacon and help meet the growing need for housing. Beacon is a community where many families want to stay and continue contributing to the city that they love. The Berisha family has been a long-standing contributor to the Beacon community for over 30 years, and this project reflects the same commitment to investing in the city's future.
By providing more housing options, the project would support local businesses, strengthen neighborhood stability, and allow Beacon to remain a welcoming place for families to live and grow, and also continue to stay here. The people that are here, it would be affordable housing so that we can stay in Beacon and not have to move out of the town that we love. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We do have a draft SECRA neg deck that we can discuss and potentially act on. We can also discuss where we stand with the public hearing, whether we want to keep that open or otherwise close. So let's take them in order. Let's talk about the public hearing. Any discussion around potentially closing?
It should not be closed until you act on secret.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
There's a subdivision lot merger involved, so.
Right. So let's talk about secret.
Sorry.
Sometimes I get the order wrong. All right, thank you. I'm glad you're here.
It's only subdivisions.
Let's talk about the secret neg deck then. Yeah, again, as much as I struggle about the parking, I understand that it doesn't necessarily rise to the criteria of significant adverse effect. I'll still grumble about parking here and well into the future. But any other thoughts or discussion around the secret neg deck, folks? Otherwise, I'll then accept a motion to adopt secret neg deck for this application.
Motion.
Motion by Kevin.
Second.
Second by Karen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. And then let's go back to the public hearing. I just wanted to prime you all so you're ready. You know what's coming. Any discussion about closing public hearing? Otherwise, then I'll accept a motion to do so.
Should we be closing the public hearing?
What are next steps?
I mean, it seems like there's a fair amount still outstanding here.
That's fair.
There's some elevations and.
I mean, the garbage thing is going to have a significant impact.
I'm all for keeping it open.
Why don't we keep it open?
Okay. Agreed?
Yeah.
Fair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Great. Next, unless we need a 2-minute break. Yeah, we're going to take a 2-minute break.
If I may, just one note, just for the benefit before, if I can jump out of order to 291 Main Street, just ask that we adjourn that matter for anyone that might be here. Just ask that it be adjourned. So just taking that out of order for the specific purpose of asking that it be adjourned for lack of a full complement of the board.
Is this a late-breaking development? Like in the moment?
Sure.
Okay, so for the record and for anyone who's here for that
It's not a public hearing, but
particular
it's-
agenda item, we're going to excise that from our agenda for this month. Hold over till next?
Yes,
Yeah.
looking for a full complement of the board, correct.
Oh, yes. That's
That's it.
the applicant's
As you would.
decision, choice.
Now you may break.
Thank you for the permission to break.
But thank you.
Well, I'd like more planning is needed on parking because with a retail.
Okay, we are now ready to get back started. Court is now back in session.
Right.
Okay. So, we're going to proceed then with the next item on our agenda, which is the continued review of application for special use permit approval, residential 829 Walcott Avenue, submitted by Lauren Wally. Good evening.
Good evening. So we provided updated plans based on the comments we talked about last month. We updated the bulk zoning regulations. I know there's a couple of things to fix on there. And then the zoning compliance notes somehow were on an unprinted layer, but I have them on there, so they'll be on there too. So we were talking about parking last month. We were proposing, 4 constructed parking spaces, and then we talked about that. And what we demonstrated on the plan is that we can have two, sort of land banked additional spaces on the grass, but not, not constructed, but they're there. And in addition to that, there's, 3 existing parking spaces in that loop driveway. And then I also confirmed, you don't need a ADA space if there's less than 6 rooms in the B&B. We corrected some of the labeling on the fencing, and we'll provide more additional, photographs of that for the final submission.
Yeah. So just describe the land banking. The intent there is to use that land banking to accommodate all of the required parking?
Yeah, I mean, there's a range of parking, but, between 3 and 9 spaces. Originally, we proposed 4. With that land banking, we're showing that if there's a need for overflow, we can put 2 more over there. And then there's also the 3 in the loop driveway.
Yeah.
Is it formally proposed land banking?
Well, I mean,
or is it just like an overflow area? Like are you proposing to like extend the gravel area further, or just use that space, like the lawn space?
Just use that space if it becomes
This
necessary.
is an outgrowth. The discussion we had at the prior meeting was that if there's overflow parking needed in a substance, they'll just park on the grass, and that got the discussion to, okay, so why don't you land bank a little of that space?
Right. Yeah, it's not, landscaping or land banking is defined in the code, but that was the idea.
Yeah.
That we should demonstrate that it was there.
But also the intent, the reason I asked was the intent as part of the application also is to show provision for parking within the turnaround.
Right. And that's shown as well.
Right, which is not technically allowed.
Right.
So we as a board maybe want to, I think this is one of your observations too, Natalie, is we want to really consider this in the precedent setting aspect of an approval of that front yard parking, if we were to do so.
And I understand the question, but it's something that they use and have been using for a while.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand the context. I understand the fact that it's not uncommon, especially in a situation like this, and that it is currently used that way. I want to acknowledge, as a board, that we do have some discretion there.
Right.
But we have to make sure we're considerate of using that discretion relative to potentially precedent setting.
Right.
Right. And that's the reason I'm making that statement.
Yeah.
Right. So it's, again, more for the board to consider around that aspect.
And just to add a little bit more color to that, so the code does allow, it says that there shall be no designated off-street parking in the front yard, except as approved by either the building inspector when it's not part of a board application, or the planning board for an unusual lot configuration. That's the language in the code.
Yeah.
So, because clearly this lot is, pretty standard, right? It's like a square or rectangle. But I think if the board is interested in allowing this front yard parking and to sort of alleviate any concern for precedent for this being applied in the future, I think we can point to the unique and unusual characteristic of this horseshoe driveway that exists on the lot as being sort of the unusual lot, unusual configuration within the lot to allow for the front yard parking in this instance. The fact that it's an existing building, it's existing driveway in that configuration.
I was going to say, we point to the fact that there's the existing usage has the parking there.
Yeah.
But, that aside, we're not on appeals court. There is no precedent. It's just whether somebody would say we were arbitrary and capricious in the future, which is a minimal, I shouldn't say minimal, but
Right,
We
and
think
but-
it makes sense. I don't think we should be coming up on.
I know.
But if we
All
were
I'm saying
presented
is
with
that-
the exact lot configuration in the future, and we didn't distinguish exactly why we were granting it here, someone could
Right.
potentially point to this. and
Because
So I think it's
know that
important to
we're not an appeals
list the
court.
factors.
Right, but there are other applicants who may come to say, hey, you did it here, why can't we do it? And I think you make the very good point that we have to make sure that we're very clear about, maybe setting precedent is not the right way to look at it. It's more creating the right argument for why
In this
and
instance.
what unusual aspect made this particular situation one that we could approve.
Fair enough. I think we're all on the same page.
I mean, also, the other consideration is that, even without those three being, formally demonstrated in the loop driveway, now we have 6 as opposed to 4, which is, further up in the range of 3 and 9. So, if you didn't want it, then the other consideration is that acceptable, without the 3 in the driveway? Which are probably going to be used anyway, practically.
Yeah, I think that's the reality. Okay, what else? I think then we'll just hear quickly from our consultants. We'll start with John.
So I had previously requested a few notes be added to the plans. Those still have to be added. And cleaning up of the sheet numbering. There's only 3 sheets. You're calling 5 sheets, and the drawing index is calling out 5 sheets. So.
Come on, man.
I would say my comments are not substantive either. They're mostly cleanup items, so clean up to the zoning compliance table to correct some things, adding the notes with regards to compliance for the special permit should be added to the plan. The one, and the parking I addressed, I think the one thing that I was asking for was there is specific language in the code for the special permit use of being adequately, of off-street parking areas being adequately screened from adjacent residential properties. So I was just trying to get more clarity on the one side of the property where the parking, accessory parking is located. There's a stockade fence there. I believe it's stockade fence. I was just trying to figure out, like, how tall is it? Is there additional plantings there? Is there screening? I mean, I think the board can feel assured that it is kind of an existing condition there. That is where the accessory parking is already existing now. I was mostly asking questions, is there improvements that we could be doing? Just because something's existed some way forever, right? There could still be improvements there. So it was mostly that, and I don't know if the applicant wants to talk to that, but I think that was the most substantive comment of mine.
Thank you. Do you want to address that?
Yeah, I mean, there is fencing there, and what we were going to do is, make sure that's all documented and provide photographs so you can see how the screening
Tall
works.
fencing too,
Yeah.
or?
Yeah, I think it's 6 feet, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Board?
Yes, seems fine to me.
Mike? Yeah, okay. So in that case, we do have, as far as procedurally, the draft resolution. Anything you wanted to add, Jennifer?
No, just the resolution was circulated in advance of the meeting, and it addresses all of the general special permit standards as well as all of the specific special permit standards for the bed and breakfast. And it does note, it approves the front yard parking situation, noting exactly what we discussed earlier.
Thank you.
With the horseshoe driveway, it's existing building, existing driveway, and it will eliminate the need for additional parking, in the rear yard. So kind of preserving some more open space.
Excellent. With all that noted, I will then accept a motion to adopt resolution.
Motion.
Motion by David.
Seconded by Len.
Second by Len. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're all set?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Next item on the agenda, continued review of application for site plan approval, commercial 425 Main Street, submitted by Stanza Books. That's you too?
Yeah. This one should only take 45 minutes or so. Yeah, I think, basically, we provided the information on the lighting that was asked for, and I think that was the only change, that we didn't have any engineering or planning comments.
Yep, okay. We clear, Natalie?
Yep, no comments from
John,
planning.
clear? Okay. Do we have draft?
We have a resolution. We do.
Sorry, I lost access to all of the good stuff on the internet, so.
Oh.
So we can have notes here too.
The resolution is a very standard site plan and certificate of appropriateness resolution. Nothing unique to note. It has all of your standard conditions.
That being said, I'll accept them.
I didn't see a copy of that yet. Did you distribute it?
It was up on the agenda.
It's on the
That's
line.
where I pulled my
okay.
copy from.
Okay. I'll find it.
Just
Yeah,
give me
it
one
should be
second.
up there.
I was just proofreading it real quick. Not, you know.
Yeah.
You want a moment? I'm going to make you enter the motion once you're done.
And Aria, are you able to get a copy on, do you want to see?
Looks good to me.
It's standard. You've seen these before.
Yeah.
So
This isn't your first rodeo.
I trust you.
So I'll move to adopt the resolution for site plan approval.
Thank you.
I'll
No,
second.
Second by Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Let's do more like this.
Yeah.
Quick. Excellent. So again, item number 5, 291 Main Street, the telephone building has been pulled from the agenda for anyone who is here on that item. So then that allows us to move to item number 6, which is our continued review of application for amended site plan approval, commercial, 3 Beekman Street, submitted by DS Center for the Arts.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mike Bodendorf, engineer for the applicant. While I'm setting this up, just update you on what was provided since the last meeting. We provided a SWIP report in support of the stormwater design, updated landscaping, and a lighting plan, and it advanced the stormwater design further to match the calculations in the SWIP. Okay, so just going through the plans on a high level. Existing conditions plan, we're identifying the trees that need to be removed. Overall site plan showing the entire tract parcel. New parking lot, expanded parking lot, new storage building. This is just a blow-up of the site plan, provide greater detail. We'll be extending the sidewalk from the parking lot out to the sidewalk at Beekman Street. We'll be widening the driveway coming into the site to provide two-way traffic, and we'll be widening that a little bit more. We're showing it at 20 feet now. We'll widen that to 24 feet to provide proper turning movements in and out of the new parking lot. We have 2 stormwater management facilities on here to meet the requirements of the state regulations for a SWIP. Both bioretention areas. We will do some soil testing in those when the weather permits to see if we can get some infiltration out of those. Right now they're designed with no infiltration, which is the reason why the size that they are. Hopefully we can lessen those footprints a little bit. But in current case, we're showing worst case conditions and that they're compliant. Erosion control. We provided a landscaping plan, as I mentioned, with a mixture of evergreen trees and evergreen shrubs. And as I mentioned before, that will be enhanced by the experts that provide landscape design for DIA. We also, here's the lighting plan. We'll work on that further. And we provided a section through the site showing the relationship to Beekman Street and Wolcott Avenue, parking lot, and so forth. That's generally the update since last month.
Thank you. Great. We'll go to our consultants then.
I can start. So my first comment is about kind of the location of the new parking and screening along the public right-of-way. So I just wanted to kind of bring this up to have a discussion with the applicant and the planning board before the second appearance. I think what we're seeing now, as Mike went through, is the number of trees along the public right-of-way that are going to be removed for this location of this new parking. So one of the things that's talked about in the code is ensuring kind of looking at alternatives to reduce the removal of trees as much as possible. So it does look like a tight site. You have a lot of grade change here and all kinds of things, but I think it is pertinent for the board and the applicant to kind of discuss, is this the right location for this? Is there really nowhere else this can go on site? Because it is having kind of the highest number of impacts in terms of clearing trees on this site, being close to the roadway and close to neighbors. So I just wanted to kind of have the opportunity for the board to be comfortable of going through alternatives that may have been considered.
Sure.
And maybe why those weren't feasible, so they know that this is the location before we kind of get too far. I think number 2 was about screening and landscaping of the parking areas. So like I said, if this is the only location for this, I think looking for kind of what's proposed here is, I think, some kind of evergreen, taller plants. I guess I'm most concerned about the closest neighbor there in terms of if this lot is going to be lit, and we are showing some landscaping around there, but I just wanted to take a moment to think about whether there could be fencing or maybe there needs to be something thicker there in terms of a barrier to prevent light spilling and screening from that property. Lighting plan, you did give a lot of details on there, and I think we got the spec sheets where it was showing kind of all the options. I think all the lighting can be code compliant. We just needed that kind of specified, because there's options in there of what you can choose. So we just needed that specified, that what will be chosen is going to be the code compliant lighting.
View sheds?
Oh, the view shed, yeah. So I think the other big comment was within the LWRP, and this was noted in the applicant's materials, that policy 25 does identify kind of the wooded area around the former Nabisco factory as being kind of this key view shed. So that kind of played into my first comment of we are clearing some of that wooded area here for this lot. So I think we should talk about whether kind of views from that area, we need to analyze those more kind of on existing and post, if this location remains the chosen location.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I just respond to some of that while we're sort of on that topic?
Well, it's fresh.
Okay, so we did look at, alternative locations for this parking lot, and the key here is it serves two purposes. It's going to serve the purposes of overflow parking for the DIA, but they also have an agreement with the funeral home, so we want to make that convenient for the funeral home, that it's, if, for instance, Natalie pointed out, did we look at expanding this parking lot? We did, but we have a stormwater easement here that we can't really encroach into. There's also a drainage ditch, which is now shown on the plan. It's not shown on the plans that were submitted, but it will be in future submissions. And that takes on a lot of drainage from city streets, so we didn't really want to mess with that. The grades in there are generally flat, but I will point out where this is, the grades are flat. We're not into the steep slopes. The steep slopes are sort of in this area here.
You do have some cut to do, though. Yeah.
We do have some cut, yeah, and we do have a retaining wall to prevent grading up that hill. This area is very steep. It's just not conducive for a parking lot. So we are kind of looking at that area as the best area for an expanded parking lot.
Thank you. On the subject of view shed, right, Karen's pointing to another flat spot right behind.
Behind the proposed
behind the
storage
shed
building.
I'm sorry, behind where?
Behind the proposed storage building to the south, yeah.
That actually drops way off.
Okay.
It does. Actually, I can show you.
Yeah, I don't see your contours on there.
You can see right here. It drops down, and then it drops down about 20 feet.
Yeah.
So it'd be probably quite a bit more earthwork than it would take for the other location. Plus, it's much farther away from the funeral home, so it's not very convenient for.
You got a birdie in your ears.
Hi, my name is Rachel Pivnik. I am the Deputy Director and Chief Operating Officer for Dia Beacon. And one of the key reasons for that location is for the visitors to be able to get into, conveniently, our building. And from that space, they're able to walk along sidewalks that are existing sidewalks and then enter through our front, through our main entrance. Any other spot is very, very difficult for the visitors to get in. It's quite steep. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to drive through. The upper lot is where our staff parks, and it's quite a steep walk, and that gets back to our loading dock entrance, not to the front entrance. So there really is no way for the visitors to walk around.
Thank you. View sheds. Yeah, so you're familiar with those protected view sheds that
Yep.
Natalie mentioned. So we want to obviously talk a lot more about what your plans are for maintaining those. And again, the subject of trees, obviously we understand in order to build this parking lot, some trees need to come down, but we always obviously emphasize prudence, right? No tree should come down unless absolutely necessary, right? And then again, the view shed, what is the plan to make sure that that's restored or otherwise, excuse me, enhanced?
So I took this picture today. This is at the intersection of Beekman and Wolcott, right about at the stop sign for Beekman Street. Looking southwest, you can see the Dia building. You can kind of see the river off in the distance. This is that existing storage building that the new one will look just like. The parking lot is going to sit in this area down here. So we're going to be adding trees. Obviously, these trees come out for the parking. We'll be adding trees on the uphill side of this, mixed with those shrubs. But there's also trees that we aren't taking out on the other side of that ditch that will still be there. That's these trees in the background here. So we are supplementing trees. I mean, in my opinion, you're opening up a view to the river, which I think is beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, and in fact, I think that's the, correct me if I'm wrong, Natalie, but that's the view that John was, I think, highlighting in his wonderfully grainy black and white.
Yeah, and if you look at the last sentence or paragraph sentence of, this is view shed 4 in the LWRP. The scenic quality would be enhanced by cleaning up the roadside along the sidewalk and providing benches and low-growing trees. So it seemed to indicate that they wanted that view to be maintained, to be able to see the river and not be blocked by too much vegetation.
Cool. Okay. Did we already get to you? It's getting late. I'm forgetting. Yeah, you're done. Okay. What do you got?
So basically, Mr. Bodendorf had already started responding to a number of the comments. There is some comments we have on the SWIP. They do have rock. They encountered rock, but they only have it in one of their test holes that they have it in the area of the parking lot. With regards to the sidewalk, Mike, and the tree removals, at the entranceway you have a 48-inch tree that's to be removed. Could we just meander the sidewalk and kind of leave that 48-inch tree?
I like that. Is that a technical term? Meander?
I learned it from an architect.
Forget it then. Wipe it from your memory.
Where are we talking, John? Where is that tree?
So your access off of Beekman Street, at the entrance there, on the right side, there's a 48-inch tree you're showing to be removed on the removal
This
plan.
one right here, if you're looking at the screen?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'll take a look at that. We could probably...
I wonder if we can go around the backside. I mean, it's...
I know there's a guide rail there, but I think that is after the guide rail. So
It is.
we could probably get around that and maintain that tree.
Excellent. Anything else?
No.
All right. Board? What do you got?
I don't want to jump on your area there, Karen, but I had a couple thoughts because this is a significant cultural institution, and there's landscaping that's like nationally, like it's iconic. There's the existing landscaping of DIA is part of our cultural heritage. One of the things in this area that I like about driving up there is it's that sort of mound on the driveway. So the first on the first sheet, you can kind of see it between the parking lot, the existing parking lot, and Beekman, and it has like this sort of grass, and there's specimen trees, right? And it's not incredibly like effusively planted, but it's very minimal, and it has like it has a certain feeling about it, right? That I'm sure was intentional and was part of the design. The one thing that I would, it makes it more difficult, but if you were to landscape, especially the view that you're seeing laterally as you're driving up Beekman, right, sort of parallel to this parking lot, there's two views that are significant. One of them is the one that goes parallel to the existing parking lot, and the other one is across the parking lot to the river, right? And I think that if you treated it less like a commercial parking lot screening exercise, right, with sort of conventional plantings, and you're just trying to get this thing done, and thought of it more of as part of the kind of field and specimen tree thing that's on that hillock, right? If there's a way to do both of those things and maintain that, I think that would be a way of like improving this, right? Just aesthetically, just because you're doing this effort anyway, right? You have to, you want to really obscure this parking lot, you actually have to. We have a requirement for that. And if there's an opportunity where you can punch this up to at least in the same ballpark as the rest of the thing, I think it'd benefit the community and the facility,
Understood. Just for clarification, which specimen trees are you talking about?
There's a couple of trees in that hilly area that are, okay, I don't even know what they are. It's not my specialty. I just know that it's like the grass grows tall there quite frequently. There's surface rock that's, its ledge is very close to the surface, and it's a little bit like, the Oakland Hills, I guess. You know what I mean? And that's a unique sort of landscape that I've only seen there, and I didn't know if that would be something that you could use as an inspiration. Like I said, it would be a shame to start doing conventional commercial plants there, when so much, especially like the new project, I'm looking forward to seeing like the whole development that's happening behind. Yeah, and it's, like I said, it's an unknown, or it's not heralded how significant Beacon is in the landscape architecture.
To try to give you some more comfort, the same landscaper, Studio Zodi, who worked on our South Garden, will be working on this landscape, but has not had much input on it yet.
Okay.
So
but by next meeting we'll have...
By next meeting, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Great.
I think that's super
and
important.
And they do not want, they want the coverage to look more natural rather than looking like it's, we're just going to put some conifers there and cover it up. They really want it to look much more natural, and they have quite a few ideas. So that will hopefully be in your package on the 24th, I think.
Great.
I look forward to seeing that.
I think, cohesive landscaping composition. Sounds great.
I will happily let them take the lead on that.
You'd just be picking arborvitae, right?
Love those Stooges.
Okay. What else? Procedurally, I lost track. I don't have my.
Are we in a position where we could schedule a public hearing
I
at
think
this
we
point?
could. Let's discuss it.
Sounds reasonable to me.
Reasonable,
I
reasonable.
think this has moved far along
Yep.
enough that that should.
Excellent. I think you have unanimous consent that we could most likely enter a motion and approve opening public hearing for next, or noticing public hearing for next month.
Motion
So,
to-
Motion by Lynn.
Yeah.
Second.
Second by David. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great, so that concludes our regular agenda. We have, we had 3 items on architectural review. I'm to understand 48 Beacon Street facade. Do I have that right? Mercedes is out. So that brings us to review for certificate of appropriateness for 65 Monell Place as a new single-family home.
Oh, that lot got built
So,
finally, huh?
Oh,
hi.
when, I have a question for us
Shoot.
procedurally. When these type of applications come in, is it within our purview to request a site plan that shows the, because we saw this last one, there was a subdivision or something?
We have in the past, you mean, just really understanding context?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we do, especially for a new single-family home. I don't think we have the applicant here. 65 Monell Place?
Okay. Can we?
What did you say?
Can we?
What'd you say to me?
Which please? Which please?
Oh, is that
with
498 Main?
The
Yeah.
best-looking storefront window, always.
Yeah.
It's always so super fun and
Okay.
super creative.
Yeah, it looks like Monell Place hasn't shown up, so yes, please, 498 Main Street.
I'm pretty old school, so I brought a printout for you guys. Is that okay?
Yep.
I only did 4. Is that all right?
Good night, thank you, Natalie.
We can share.
Safe drive. Thank you.
Save some trees.
We can share.
Oh, that's what she was saying.
Yes? Well, there we go.
Yeah, which please? No, thank you. Oh, it's not, okay.
Is this supposed to be a play on words?
Well, yeah. My name's Rowan, by the way, the owner of Which Please. And we opened our store almost 4 years ago, across the street at the Mattawan station. And we had a much smaller space, and we moved to this new location back in 2024. December is when we opened the doors.
This is the old weed store, right?
Yeah, it's where the Leaf was. And I was friends with Grant. But we haven't had a sign for our shop other than the one in the window that you see there. And we're in the process of wanting to get a sign made with Timely signs out in Kingston. And they've come up with that mock-up for me. And I was asked to come get it approved. So that's why I'm here. It's just a black, and they gave me the black color codes on the bottom there, you can see.
Yeah, I'm just curious, is the color scheme, the paint as represented in the photo, is that what's currently in place?
That's the current, yes, the current color.
So this will be on a white, this is basically black lettering on a white background?
Yeah.
White-ish?
I can show you. Well, that building was owned by Rodney Weber until recently, and it was sold, and those were the colors that he approved me to paint it. I hope it's okay. It was.
Yeah, no, I was just
when
curious.
we opened.
No, it's
yeah, we
fine.
opened it in 2024, and that's. I wanted to do black trim. He was like, absolutely not. I like it the way it turned out. It looks good.
Yeah, okay.
And there's standoff letters on pins or something? I'm not sure.
Yeah, he explained it there on that bottom portion. Let me look what I wrote here.
Stud-mounted letters.
Yeah, stud-mounted letters.
So they'll stand off a little bit from the...
And they're completely removable, so
They're not
when we
necessarily.
do
It
expand
could be
to a
flush,
bigger
but there's
space
depth.
eventually.
Yeah.
But we
Okay.
have another 4 years at this space, so.
They're half-inch.
Is according to the lease.
So it's PVC.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion by David.
Seconded by Len.
Second by Len, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks
Thank you
for-
so much.
Thanks
Good
for
luck.
sticking around all night.
Do you guys
Listen
want
to
to keep
us
those,
drone
or
on
should I
about
take them?
parking. What's that? Oh, no, yeah, if you need it, take it.
Does Mercedes have one?
Okay.
Might want for Mercedes.
Thank you. So she has it for the file.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Thanks.
too.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience.
Patience.
Can we request from the Monell Place applicant before, if they're to come, if we anticipate they're going to come next month, can we request that they give us a
More
plan of the building on the lot so we can see? And this is because with, just want to see new housing with the context of
Well-
where, you know, where it is in relation to other homes,
Yeah.
where it's positioned on the lot in relation to other homes.
Yeah, I think
Is it
that's
adjoining?
fair. We have in the past asked for that
You're welcome.
context.
Good night.
So the idea is to be able to represent a little bit more context, one through, it sounds like you're looking to sort of understand its citing?
Yes,
right?
please.
And then also, if, it's always useful, I don't know why we don't always. Monell.
Monell, who's not here
65.
apparently, but I was thinking maybe before if they're going to come next month, perhaps, maybe we can reach out to them and say, you know, the board.
We need more.
The board noted, you know, while they were, you know, while your application was looked at before, you know, before they realized you weren't there, that they would like a lot plan showing the, you know, the footprint of the proposed new home and with context of the adjoining lots, you know.
And can I add that
Yeah,
really
go for it.
the materials aren't really indicated in any clear way, like the siding materials? It's not, you don't know really what color it is from the street, and the rendering is really pretty,
Yeah, it's not descriptive enough, right?
Yeah.
So we would need to really understand the materiality, the colors. Also, there's a case to be made. It's always useful to understand the surrounding context, additionally through photographs of neighboring buildings. Yeah, that'll, as Len said, put them at a better advantage should they come back.
Footprint, siding materials.
yes.
And photos of the neighboring property.
And
Yeah,
also specific, like, samples of the siding, the colors, the materials, like we all usually get. There should be a.
And they might have been bringing those, we don't know, but.
Right, but there should be an explicit, so that people don't have to come back, you know, and also so that we don't accept things that aren't sufficiently descriptive. There should be a checklist for these guys. I'm just
Well, that's
suggesting.
another-
I know
this
we
is
don't have that
another-
there.
this
I'm
is
just,
another thing.
I'm bringing it up now just because.
Kevin's
I-
gone into SOPs and
I-
procedures for submittal requirements. Don't worry about it.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. I'm talking to the
right.
rest of these guys.
So, yeah, let's not belabor it. I think we get the
Thanks.
message. So we want to move on to, under miscellaneous business, the city council's request to review an amended concept plan approval, right? So this has been before, and Jennifer's going to give us a little bit more context.
Before we start, I just need to make a
Yes.
disclosure.
Yes.
Oh, you're here? You missed us.
You've been here the whole time?
Okay. No, you.
All right.
So,
But yes, sure. Well, I think, I don't know if you heard the part of the conversation. Yeah, so your submission goes so far in kind of, you know, providing us a kind of understanding of what you're attempting, sort of isolated to simply your lot, right, the house. So there really isn't any other, you know, kind of surrounding context and understanding of, you know, what your neighboring buildings look like. Yeah.
A site plan.
And a site, yeah. So,
With adjacent context.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think just relative to what you've shared with us so far, we can certainly give you some feedback, as long as you're okay coming back.
Sure.
Yeah.
If that's what it requires. So, my name is Joe Pomerango. I work with Dave Feeney, professional engineer.
I'm so sorry, I cannot hear you.
I apologize. My name is Joe Pomerico. I work with David Feeney, a professional engineer. This is 65 Monell Place. Contemporary home, we are looking at a 3,200 square foot, 2-story, 4-bedroom. Features, you know, once again, contemporary homes typically have panoramic views. We have a beautiful view of the Hudson River. We are southwest facing. We are going to have, it's going to feature an EPDM rubber roof, black. The window type is going to be a Geldwin sightline, which has been featured on many homes that are contemporary because they tend to give better views. Also the patio doors as well. stucco will be a black smooth finish. Wood paneling, privacy wall, which you could see in the upper balcony, is going to be a European teak color, which I brought one of the samples as well. The under soffit, as you can see over here, that is going to be a stained knotty pine. The garage door, which you see are featured on this side as well, is going to be a black Clopay 3-layer construction steel insulated door. And the balcony is going to be a Trex signature glass panel railing. So I didn't catch all of the comments before. I apologize. I thought I had 3 more. I went out for a phone call and I came back, and I guess we already got into architecture review, so my apologies.
Don't worry. Thank you. So you're, just to kind of place you, you're up next to the bridge access.
Correct.
Is the site as wooded as the renderings indicate?
Right now, I went there probably about a month ago. It's not as wooded, I would say. There will be some landscaping done, because part of the concern is obviously it's right up against the bridge, and we want to create a sound barrier of some type. The builder, Anthony Hardisty, he's not too concerned with it because of the way it's facing, and as you can see from the other renderings that I submitted, that there is not a lot of windows on the rear-facing side. So there will be some landscaping, but probably not as much as shown. This is more just for aesthetics.
How far off of the existing road is the house going to be set?
I want to say approximately 80 feet.
So Monell Place kind of just dies off into the woods there, and where, at least where the map has pinned you, it's...
I've had 2 different experiences with Google Maps dropping the pin in 2 different places trying to get, and that's why one of my comments was like, if we had any kind of lot plan, site plan showing the road and where the house is on the lot, you know,
Sure.
I think especially, I don't think it's much of it's probably not as much of an issue in this, well, I'm not 100% certain of the location, but I think with new housing, you know, infill and Beacon, it's been important to me, more important with time and experience, to try to just see exactly where is it, you know, in relation to other parcels, other homes.
Yeah, and again,
Where's
I
the
think
lot?
that
Where's the house on the lot?
also the sort of aesthetic context within which you're working, right? We're familiar with this area up here. Yeah, not to say that there's an aversion to modern architecture, but you know, when you think about the fact that you're in a sort of an environment here where this stands out quite a bit, right, because of its aesthetic. So that's a consideration that we have to make sure that we understand and study, right? Because there's a sort of a quality to our review that you know, goes down to, you know, either being too similar or too dissimilar, and so we somewhat have to be, you know, held to that and really think long and hard about just exactly that, the context within which you're building something, you know, very unique and new aesthetically, especially to this context. So yeah, with that said, you know, really an understanding of where exactly this is, right, in terms of its siting, and then, you know, what the surrounding context offers, just in terms of the other, you know, the other homes there and the aesthetic, right? Again, it's not to say that we're looking for exactly the same thing, but there is a sort of a quality of styles up here that's very different from what you're proposing. Yeah. So yeah, I guess a little bit more information. Hopefully that's helpful.
Sure. So we're looking for a site plan, maybe an aerial view showing the surrounding properties, more photos showing the surrounding properties as well. Yeah. Okay. Are we opposed to this style, or will we still consider a contemporary look?
I think we need to have a better explanation of what the materials are. You know,
Okay.
what the siding is, what it's going to look like from the street, basically the public presentation of it.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, I know this can be part of our review, but like the part that's going to be seen from Newburgh, isn't that insignificant to the community, but the neighbors, I think, and there's a community interest in this being we have a weird, like I said, not too similar, not too dissimilar, which is not a very useful guide, but for neighborhoods like this.
So more material samples.
Yeah, that one
More
also
material
helped.
samples, aerial view, surrounding neighborhood photos.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, great.
And
Thank
if
you
you
very
could just think about when you're doing that similar, dissimilar, right? That's the only guideline we have, but also how it fits in, right? And there's an intent. I think there's an appreciation of neighborliness,
Yeah.
right? I don't think there's nothing illegal. There used to be in function illegal. We used to never approve modern buildings in denser traditional neighborhoods in Beacon. I don't necessarily agree with that, and it's not really part of the code, but that used to be the practical. And I think that's something that we've moved on from. But
Yeah, but think
I'm sorry
about
for not
this.
remembering, but what's the size of this lot? It's a pretty big lot, isn't it?
It's, I don't have the site plan in front of me. It's over 2 acres, I believe.
Yeah, that's what 'cause it was on
Yeah,
the
it's a
market
nice
for a
size
while.
lot. It is. So, and it, like I said, it butts right up to the bridge. I believe it's been sitting for a while, and, you know, Anthony and Hardy 2 Corp. Are looking to make an investment on this.
No, it's
It was
literally
nice.
one of the nicest undeveloped lots in Beacon. in my
Yes,
opinion.
correct.
Yep, and spectacular views. Yeah, think about this, right? Again, there isn't necessarily an aversion to modern aesthetic. No. It really comes down to, like, for example, if this were a modern building that was all poured concrete, that'd be a different story in this context, right? You know, you may want to think about lending some, sensitivity to other materiality, around you, right? Wood, obviously glass, but, just think about how to, make a nod to not just the wooded environment that you're in, but also this other surrounding, buildings. Because there are actually some, beautiful historic buildings up there too. So it's really just, we're looking to make sure that there's some consideration, some sensitivity, and some thought around, not just necessarily plonking and this isn't obviously tadauando, but you get my meaning, right?
Sure.
Hopefully
Appreciate it.
that's helpful.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience. We'll see you next month.
Yes,
Yep.
sounds good, thanks.
Great. Okay, so we have, again, under miscellaneous business, the City Council has requested our review of an amended concept plan, which has been reviewed and approved by City Council, right? The concept.
plan? No, not approved. It was
Why does it say approval? Oh, approval, application for approval, forgive me. So they've recommended, they've reviewed it,
and referred it.
and they've referred it, yes.
So,
So again,
just-
let's let Jennifer give us some context first, and then,
I just need to make
Yes.
a declaration. I am a member of a community group, volunteer community group, that is the Beacon Pollinators Group. We have, in that guise, I've had discussions with the management of the 248 Tiranda project about developing a pollinator garden in an underused area on their lot. So I don't think that would prevent me from being impartial in this matter, but I just wanted to make it public.
okay.
And does the applicant have any objection to Karen participating in the review?
Not at all.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you.
Great. And then you want to give us some background
Yeah, I'll just
context?
give, because it's a referral from the city council, I'll just give a little bit of context before the applicant gives their presentation, just to give a sense of what the council has done with the application so far. So as you're very well familiar with this site, the original approval did include a commercial component to the site plan pursuant to the Fishkill Creek Development District Code that requires 25% non-residential unless waived by the city council. So the city council can waive the non-residential component of the project if in the city council's determination there's a desirable environmental, transportation, or other substantial public benefit that wouldn't otherwise be required for the project. So here, the applicant sought a waiver for that non-residential component of the project. And, you know, we've heard over the years their marketing efforts for the non-residential component. The city council did grant that waiver.
That's the piece I was referring to, right? They approved that waiver.
That waiver was granted based on the applicant's proposal that they're providing about 2 times the amount of the BMR units than would otherwise be required here. So it's 136 units with 27 BMR units. So because the city council granted the waiver, no commercial is required, provided the applicant does provide the 136 units, with 27 of those being BMR. The city council also required that there be a connection path between the Greenway Trail and the Beacon Rail Trail, and also that there be trailhead parking for the public. So I think you'll see that reflected in the concept plan. So the applicant did submit a concept plan to the city council. Procedurally, the way that unfolds is the city council refers that to the planning board for the planning board to review and provide recommendations and comments back to the city council. City council reviews those recommendations, conducts its review, has a public hearing. In the event the concept plan is approved, then they come back to the planning board for site plan review.
Yep.
The other part of this is SECRA. So in the city council's referral resolution, they ask the planning board to continue in its role as lead agency as it has for prior amendments to this project. So one of the things that's on the table procedurally for you tonight is to authorize circulation of notice of intent.
Yeah.
And then, you know, also just obviously start thinking about comments. But there's a lot more details involved, which I'll leave to the applicant to present for you.
My name is, excuse me, my name is Jay Blumenfeld with High Developers. I know we're over 3 hours in, so I'll try to be as short as possible. I just wanted to start by saying something that I said by the council meeting last week, which is that just first and foremost, I know that there's been issues with trust between the community and ourselves and developing the project. Communication, I think, is a big thing. I got more involved in this project about 18 months ago, which is, I think, on Friday will be 18 months since this project has been before the planning board. And in that time, I believe I've learned a lot. I think as a company, we've learned a lot. We went through a lot of communication back and forth with the council. Our intention and our desire is to reestablish that trust. We're very proud of the project. There's certain things we definitely see from the first phase that we'd like to perfect, and in the second phase, in whichever shape that is, take those lessons that we learned. But I just wanted to start with that because I think it's important. We're trying to reset the clock. We got a resolution in the end of 2024 to open the buildings with a lot of conditions. We've tried to exceed those conditions, and we're trying to turn page. And I have with me tonight Alex Blakely, who's the architect, and Chris Lapine, who runs Labella, and their teams, civil and architectural, worked very hard on putting together the concept plan. We have a presentation that we showed to the city council. If the board would like, we could run through that quickly.
Sure.
My issue is that the laptop, Alex, can I bother you too? The laptop does not really work off the charger, apparently. So, and I'm not sure exactly why it's not on the screen, but I did plug in the dongle. It's gonna work. Is there something I need to do
I think if you push that circle, there you
There we go. Okay. So what we showed the city council, and I'll just start the first few slides and hand it over to Alex and Chris. Just for the public's sake and the council, whoever might not have been familiar with the site, just started off with an aerial view of the site as it was before the buildings were demolished. It was This was the northern portion of the Tuck Industries site, and all of these buildings were obviously demolished, I believe in 2010, if I remember correctly. And I just have two historical images of how this was as taken from Tyranda. This one I think is looking northward, this one is looking southward. And yes, the elevation in those days was a lot higher. The earth movement was significant. This is to give a perspective looking south over the creek, over the dam, I should say, of how the property looks today. Obviously, the Greenway Trail in front. And this is if you bring the drone a little further south to give context to the area that we're discussing today. And what you see as disturbed is the area that we're talking about. What you see as already finished pavement and asphalt is the area that would essentially stay the same way in our concept plan proposal. And the next few drone shots are just a few more angles. This is overhead to give a good aerial view, and looking north as well. I will hand it over to Alex unless anyone has questions before.
I'm just curious, are you looking to re-pour footing on that southmost building?
Our intention is to leave everything with the everything that was already installed exactly the way it is.
Yep.
So the way that Alex and his team worked out the architecturals was with that in mind. I'll let Alex get into that a little more. The idea, in short, would be to take the parking garage at its current plane and elevation and bring it straight to where we already put that foundation. So.
Hi, my name is Alexander Blakely. I'm the architect for the project. As you can see from the aerial view massing on the screen, our intent is to continue the architectural massing that we started with buildings 200 and 300 to the north. Building 100, which was originally intended to be commercial, will now be residential. Our intent is to add a second building to the south, which we're calling 100B. The height of the buildings continued down towards the south will be the same as the ones that are currently built that you saw in the drone footage. The width of the buildings as you go south towards what we're calling 100A and 100B are a little bit wider because the foundation for the commercial building, which is poured already, is slightly wider, so we're going to continue that. In addition, 100B that you see, the second building from the furthest south, is also a little bit wider because our intention is to add what we're calling townhouse units at the creekside face of the building to activate that elevation rather than have an exposed parking garage wall there. Just gonna down there, okay. This is a view, aerial view, looking from northwest. You can see buildings 100A and 100B on the right-hand, upper right-hand side of the screen. Again, our intent is to continue the same height as buildings 200 and 300, as they're called, that are presently built to the north.
The actual, same overall height, or is the line
The line, as you see, the elevation in respect to, what would be sea level, as you see from Tioronda Avenue, I think we have an elevation here, yeah?
There comes the question as far as the number of stories and overall building height that's allowed by the zoning.
Right, yeah. I mean, because effectively, if you are keeping the same sort of datum, if you will, of the roof line, you are, with the grade change, you're effectively, especially at Creekside, looking at more like a 5-story.
Even on the front side, on building.
As well in the front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On building 100A, yeah.
Well, I think if you look at I mean, we can talk about that in more detail, but I think if that's an issue that we want to talk about now, but I think if you look at the average elevation along this extent of the development, that you would be somewhere closer to 3 stories.
Is that in the
We're
code?
looking specifically at that building. You can't look
At
at
that
the
building?
average, it's the building.
Yeah, again, the real world impact is that these are bigger buildings, right? And then, you know, just from the sort of floor area, right? So they're deeper. And they're also, you know, again, starting to kind of create this effect of larger height-wise as well. So, yes. So again, I understand the need for a certain number of units. That obviously translates into a certain number of below market rate units. That's all good and well, but how do we do this while, you know, doing our best to minimize impact on bulk, right? That's, I think, my biggest concern. And look, I'll say this. I'm pleasantly surprised at how well the 2 new buildings integrate into the environment. You know, I know we spent a lot of time back in the day looking at those things. So I just want to make sure that we're as deliberate and thoughtful about these 2 new buildings, especially because they're adding to, you know, already a significant volume of new construction there. So, yeah, that's something I think we're going to be really
I think
thoughtful and cautious about looking at
Yeah, and I
closely.
think to that point, there are some, you know, mitigating aspects that we're adding to it, including, you know, obviously we're be, I don't think we have any images of that for this presentation, but we're going to be adding some greenery to the front there. And the way we see it is, as you see it from Tioronda Avenue, you know, you're already down sort of in that embankment there, especially if you compare it to what was once built there, where it's, I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, the group feels about it, but when you're actually going down Tioronda, he wants to say something.
I'm going to say this. I think.
The Tioronda Avenue elevation, the dotted line.
Yeah. No, I get it. Look, I'm very familiar with this site when the old Tuck Tape building was there today, right? And I've, you know, actually quite enjoyed the fact that you have the trail in place and enjoyed walking it. I will say the experience of walking the trail in front of those 2 existing buildings is somewhat foreboding, right? It's basically at that elevation, it's basically black, and you're looking at the underside of, you know, some nice balconies. Views are probably beautiful from those rooms. But my point is, you know, and I think, you know, you mentioned it earlier, right? How can you improve upon what you've already done, which is quite good? And I think, again, we're going to be really thoughtful about and look very closely at the size of these 2 new buildings, right? Understanding there's going to need to be some push-pull and balance, right? And again, yes, landscaping, always great. That's not a solve for mass and bulk.
It solves every problem.
No. Will it solve parking?
So I just want to mention 2 things quickly, again, for the sake of time. But first of all, I think that Alex's idea on the back, and I don't know if it's really accentuated enough, is that we have these townhome-style units, as Alex called it, that are flanking the garage, so you mitigate that issue of walking past. I for one, would love to figure out a way to dress that up a little more. But beyond that, every level in this current concept plan does step back as well. So I believe that the issue, well, the perspective at least, and not that it's a total solve, but the perspective of walking along the trail will be very...
Well, we also propose to push that trail
Yeah.
a little bit further towards the creek, so maybe it won't feel so foreboding.
Yeah, we'd like to push it a little further down and closer to the creek, and That's where Chris's team comes in. One other thing I'll just mention quickly is that, to me at least, doing the numbers and having to sometimes push back a little bit on other ideas that to make the numbers work, is that what we're trying to really balance here above all is the cost of the parking garage continuing to give us the parking and that concrete infrastructure, and how that, you know, kind of correlates with the unit count. But to your point, yes, it is. The elevation goes down, which gives you a higher height from the parking lot, for sure. So I'll let you continue. I'm sorry.
Well, other points maybe to talk about are, if they're relevant, is between buildings 100B and the currently built 200 and 300, we have a community amenity area, which includes an outdoor pool. But in addition to that, the development now, we have now included, as Karen mentioned, these pollination gardens. We have a community dog run, which will be available to the public, additional parking for the trailhead. And I think that the added density that we're proposing is actually going to make this a better development for those living there. It's going to make it, there's going to be more sense of community there, just because the additional dwelling units, but also for the greater Beacon community. I think it's going to be a welcome addition to the community. So,
Boy.
And I hear your point about the height of it, but I mean, honestly,
It's not legal, right? It's not compliant.
It's the zoning code. You'd have to get a variance.
My understanding, again, this is not my expertise aside from anecdotal information. My understanding was that, and I don't know if there was any conversation with Nick about this, but when this was brought up in council, my understanding was that there is the concept that when the waiver was given and the substantial benefit was talked about, we originally were asked to give 2 different levels of how many units could you build, 2 different options, and we did give a 51 units on the low end and 136 on the higher end, and we said that if we do the 136, we could get to 20%, double the BMR count. And my understanding, and again, just the brief understanding, was that it's possible that that is part of what that resolution does, and I don't know if I'm incorrect about that.
That's not the way you should do this. I have to tell you, you don't without doing impacts, traffic, parking, all these other things, the capacity of the site, after it's already been approved, right? Add that many units, and that's now what you have been given. You've been just given the units without any understanding about what the capacity is, what the height of the buildings need to be, what all this other stuff. It's just because you have what you should have been given is like a percentage, not an absolute number.
Kevin, I think the ultimate point is that unless you talked about and the city explicitly waived zoning requirements, there's still a need to comply with zoning.
So I'll and my expertise there, I don't know, so I just wanted to.
Yeah, I just double-checked the resolution from the city council. I don't see anything in there waiving, like, the bulk zoning requirements. It does waive the requirement that you would have to provide the 25% non-residential, right? So that's waived, provided you provide 136 units, 27 of which is our BMR units. But those have to fit within a zoning compliant package, or you'd need to seek a variance from the zoning board.
But are we able to reduce the number of units in order to make it compliant? Or we have to provide them with those units?
In order for them to have the non-residential waiver be effective, they have to provide 136 units.
That just doesn't seem right to me.
That's what the city.
That seems arbitrary.
It means that the city council built them into a variance process. That's what it means.
And it was per code. They had the discretion to do that under the code. And that was a determination within their discretion.
This gets to see carrying somebody has proposed to his.
Yes. What happens to the whole thing that we can't force applicants?
One at a time, please.
Yeah, I mean, the point is, the requirement is 3 stories or 40 feet, and there's a calculation based on average grade around the building. So, you'll have to work through that calculation.
I don't, again, not my expertise, but is that 100% based off of our drive that we created and not the public street that's adjacent to it?
That's the grade at the building.
Yeah.
Okay. Understood?
Yeah, it's the average grade level of the side of the building facing the primary street view.
Right. No, I guess
That's
my
directly
understanding
from-
was more based off of the language of the resolution that I don't remember verbatim, but said of the, well, if I don't remember verbatim, I won't say. It said something to do with the architectural style being carried over, I guess.
I think the ultimate point is that the waiver granted puts you in a position to where in order to achieve that, you must seek a variance.
And we could do those steps, I understand. Yeah. And just
Can
also.
you make the buildings longer? Or are you up against the property line?
Yeah, there's on the southernmost side, and by the way, I just want to point, I want to point out one thing quickly with the trailhead parking. I believe the language of the resolution was that we would try and make an attempt, which we will, but that's the least property that I think we could get into another time. But right now, we can't build on that section because it's leased to someone else with a long-term. Right now, there's a restriction on any building there. So the way that we look at it is it's simply a math game. If there's a way that we could go lower and build the parking garage, we would. It's impossible mathematically, though, to spend that money on that concrete structure. If we forego the parking garage and look at this a whole different way, that's kind of the exercise we did with the council.
Well, look, again, without
Yeah.
getting into all the details and specific, it's fair to say you have a problem to solve.
Yeah,
Right? You have
so-
a number of variables that you've got to work with, and you've got to come up with the right solution. And again, what it sounds like is that you're on a variance journey, and for height, I'm not sure that the council is aware what the sort of ultimate.
I don't know, it wasn't, so I
impact is.
had discussions with Nick over the past several days about this, Nick Ward Willis.
Yeah.
In my office, and the height issue was not raised. So
This is exactly what happened.
but
with the
I'll
other-
check with him, but I
Yeah.
don't see it in the resolution, so I'm
Yeah.
just looking.
What
just
are
based
these,
on
are
the
these unintended
documents.
consequences? Again, I mean, somebody came up with a number that they thought was a good number, right? And they sold that number without understanding what the impacts
Yeah,
were,
Kevin,
how
we
high the
understand.
building
We
was. I
understand.
think it's,
We understand.
I know, it's water under the bridge, but
We're here now.
I'll just take 10 seconds also just to say, I have this that we discussed with the council, it's just, and I don't want to say that this for any reason means that we could go build whatever we want, but we did just put together a slide that shows basically every other building, not basically, every other building in the FCD is built the same way.
Yeah,
And
that's-
I take your point, the code is the code, we have to follow that path.
The first picture you put up is of a building where they asked for a variance, and the city, very similar, the developer did a dog and pony show, held up a picture, city council signed off on it, and
Which
then,
one was
oh yeah,
that?
this is actually too tall.
Which one was that?
Not one, the other side of Walcott on Tiaranda.
The document building?
The old highway building.
Oh,
The Superfund
Creek
site.
Drive.
Creek
Not
Drive.
East 23.
Yeah, my understanding was there wasn't a variance, but I guess.
No, there was definitely a variance. I was the chair of the zoning board.
Right, okay. So I'm gonna kick it back to Chris for the second time, so.
It was excluded
if
from
there's-
Fishkill Creek.
If you want to go.
Because it was an ongoing negotiation at the time.
Good evening,
I have
Chris
the
Lapine with
contracts, I
LaBella
have the whole
Associates.
thing.
Thank you for having me here this evening. Some of the focal points I was going to discuss have already been talked about. Obviously, from the density standpoint, the buildings that you have before you right now is, as you indicated, the members of the board, is what it would take to supplement the 136 units. And obviously, that's the increase in height that you're all witnessing here. As it relates to the site improvements and modifications from a larger scale as to what's taking place, if you recall in the former application, there was a bioretention area on the southern side of the site, east of where the former building 100 was to be located. And as Jay had stated earlier, and Alex, is there's a desire to shift the trail in closer proximity to the creek to separate itself and create some distance between the walkway and the buildings. So in doing so, we're
It's in the
looking
flood
at
zone.
exploring other opportunities in terms of green roofs and planters alongside the building for managing the runoff in terms of the water quality and runoff reduction volume, preserving that lower area so that it's more organic as opposed to creating this, engineered bioretention area that would probably not necessarily fit in, preserving the existing trees. I've heard you say that a lot tonight, is look at trying to preserve the existing trees. The other thing we're revisiting in terms of the walkway that was previously approved, there were some steps in that walkway. We're trying to eliminate those steps now and intertwine this trail along the existing slopes at the same time, trying to take an approach where we're, once again, looking to preserve the trees without removing them. And that's where we're getting individuals, as I said, closer in proximity to the actual creek itself. The one other thing I wanted to point out is, and Mr. Chairman, you've indicated that you've walked part of this railway already here, the trailway. So it's constructed up to about this location here. So what the intent is for the portion of it on the north that's been constructed, and this is all in place, all these rails, the one that goes up to the rail trail and the one that connects up to the Greenway connection, is they want to create a dog walk area and extend the existing trail in this particular location about another 100 feet or so and add some benches and fence this in as part of some of the amenities. This, up to this point, is where the culvert is. This is not, this is all proposed. That's all new. We're extending the trails with some benches in this area here, so. And this would be a dog run for individuals along the trail. And as Karen alluded to earlier, obviously this project has a pollinator garden that's being contemplated as well, with a modification and a community garden as part of this. I think we all know the benefits of the pollinator garden, so I don't think I need to go into the details of that.
Can you do me a favor and just trace the water line for me here with your mouse?
Excuse me?
Trace, just track the water line for me here with your mouse. The creek water line.
On this particular one, so the Fishkill Creek is right here. The edge of the water line.
And so then
Where's the
also,
100-year flood line? That's more, I don't think you can put this in the 100-year flood line.
We're not in the 100-year flood line right
Okay.
with that location.
and then can you then trace the intent on the, so is the red the existing trail, right?
The red is the existing trail that's been built up to this point. And then this is the connection point that was referenced in the city council's memorandum. I was also going to, Jay, if I can go back to that other plan here.
Here, just go.
So the other aspect which we interpreted from the city resolution, we're all making interpretations of the city resolution this evening, is on the southern side of the project site, we have an existing walkway that's already in place. We're going to extend that and tie into the rail trail on the other side, so we've got both a southern and a northern connection as part of the project.
That'll require steps.
This will require steps because we can't navigate around the terrain in that area. It's just it's too steep. But we are figuring out ways to navigate around the terrain as you go to the north.
Yeah.
So,
Well, so the reality is that that's going to be the only way off the trail for quite some time.
I'm sorry, if you can.
That's going to be the only way off the trail.
Correct.
For quite some time.
Until the adjoining property to the south
Right.
gets developed. The 4 additional spaces that are being dedicated to the trail are in this location. Overall, we have approximately 222 spaces right now on a site that requires 200 of those 222 for being dedicated to railhead parking.
The 4 spaces for the trail, for trail usage, that wasn't part of the original plan, right? Or
It was in the last.
it was?
Yeah, a lot of what you're sharing with us, we've actually reviewed at some point. This is.
Yeah, all the surface parking, there's no changes to the surface parking. I mean, the parking that's being really generated here it's all going to be below grade parking to supplement this additional development here.
Yeah.
You know, if you break down, you know, you had some spaces that was dedicated to commercial, which is now being dedicated to residential. So we're basically utilizing the 93 spaces that are already constructed on the site, and we're incorporating the additional spaces on the site, which I think is somewhere around 127.
Yeah.
That'll be split between those that are existing already in buildings 200 and 300, plus what's being contemplated for buildings 100A and 100B.
There. And could I just observe, again, I'm just going to take the opportunity to grouse, because that's the mood I'm in. I don't know, for what it's worth, because it's not going to make a hell's beans worth of difference, but the way that the trail meets 9D right now, I knew this was going to happen. Again, there's nothing we could do about it. I don't know, maybe the city can think about restriping, but it's so stupid, because it forces people. If you're looking for the shortest distance between 2 points, I knew this was going to happen, and I hated it then, and I hate it now. I don't know why the hell somehow we got convinced that it wasn't the right thing to do to just connect the trails along the MTA underneath the freaking bridge.
Because the reason we had that
We didn't
discussion
have
is
to
because there
right
would
away.
have been no connection to 9D. That was what, at the time, the choice we were offered was, you know, we'll connect on the rail trail.
I don't want to get into it. It is what it is.
No one from 9D
It's
will be
just
able to get onto the trail.
dumb.
No, we
But
still
you
didn't
have
have
to
the
go,
ability.
you have to go to Churchill
Yeah.
or,
With
you know,
Metro-North.
wherever.
Yeah, I
And
disagree.
it doesn't make sense with all the
Oh,
people
no.
walking on
We
9D.
had-
The position
it
of
was
it may
there.
not be great, but I've walked the trail with my dog from 9D. It's pleasant. It is a little bit weird the way the access
dangerous.
is nowhere near the
Just plain
crosswalk
dangerous.
because it sort of encourages people to
Anyway.
jaywalk across 9D.
Again, I'm using the
But,
opportunity to
you know,
grouse.
You gotta like have a
Look,
sense of
there's no
self-preservation.
justifying.
I
it.
think
It's
the
just
positive,
stupid.
though,
It's
you're getting
dangerous. It's
access
bad
to the
planning.
creek, which
Well, you should be
normally in
grassing.
the past, you know, listen, I grew up in Beacon. I used to fish over here. I had a close friend's father who worked at Tuck Tate, who was able to get permission. We used to go fishing down here, so having the access back to the creek is a great
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, no, there's definitely advantages. It's lovely. But I just had to take the opportunity to pitch. That's all.
Can I
'Cause
ask
it's
one
late and I
question?
want to go home.
Did you show that this was going to be a 5-story building
To
to the city council?
This is the
Yes.
exact-
This is the exact presentation you gave to
That's
city
exactly
council.
what happened on the other building, like, it's identical.
Okay.
I didn't show that side.
Did you explain to them that it wasn't compliant with zoning?
I think the benefit of tonight's meeting was not only to establish a circulation for lead agency, but to solicit some of this great feedback that we're getting here. Obviously, there are some clarifications we need to flush out on our end, and obviously the biggest one being the height issue and how you incorporate the units into the desired height, and that message was delivered clearly tonight. So we've got our homework to do as it relates to that, and to get back to you with that information. What we also are hoping for this evening, obviously, is a circulation for lead agency. If
Right, so I'll make
I
a
did
motion.
mention to the mayor that, you know, we could offer them the opportunity to act as lead agency, since
And what was his response?
I won't get into that. Anyway.
City
so-
council actually gets paid to be here, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to every now and then reminisce about how
Chris,
many hours
I
I've
had
spent and how much
comments that were
I've never been
signed.
paid.
So should we be making a motion
Yeah.
to be designate ourselves as lead agency?
We should.
Authorized circulation.
Authorize circulation of lead agency notice? Yeah,
Yeah,
motion.
so David's made the motion to do so.
Second.
Motion to authorize our declaration of intent to act as lead agency. Second by whom?
Len.
Len, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Wonderful.
And I will just say quickly, I do plan on being by every meeting going forward, and I will take any comments, suggestions from anyone to make the site better, and
Great, thanks.
I hope to make you proud. And one comment, there's a sign right by that entrance. I'm happy to put a sign on, I actually brought it up previously, to double side that post and write, please use crosswalk to your left.
Nobody's gonna pay attention to the sign.
We could ask
It's
nicely.
the west side of,
I know.
there's no crosswalk on the.
Like, it is what it is. It's
We'll
just,
get the rail trail soon.
people naturally, you're going either way. You naturally come off and you look both ways, you want to cross. Anyway,
You didn't give us the Shisugi screening that you promised, remember?
So I'm going to make the motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Oh, sorry. We're still open.
I'm sorry, one quick thing on miscellaneous business before we adjourn. We talked about it in work session, the local law, but now that we're in regular session, we just need a motion to, it sounds like, refer positive comments back to the city council on the proposal.
Which one?
For the referrals.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so,
We said we generally agree with it.
right, so we will make a motion to that effect. So I'll make that motion. Motion by John,
Second.
second by Kevin, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You got it, Mercedes?
A motion to send positive comments back to the city council on the proposal. On the existing.
This one now is a motion to adjourn.
Second.
So I've made the motion by John, second by Karen, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimously voted.